When I married Jerry, I was lucky to inherit some property from my grandparents. They suggested I use it to secure our future but advised me to keep it a secret, even from Jerry. They thought it was wise to have some income that only I knew about, ensuring I would always be financially secure. Unfortunately, Jerry often crosses boundaries with possessions and finances. For example, he has tried to give away gifts from my parents to his parents to make himself look good. This upset me, especially when he reacted badly when confronted. Recently, a big issue arose. I discovered that $22,000 had been taken from an account meant for our living expenses. This account was supposed to support the income Jerry contributed. I didn't remember making such a large withdrawal, so I concluded that Jerry must have taken the money. When I asked him about it, he admitted he had lent the money to his mother, Kayla, without my knowledge. This was shocking because it showed a lack of communication and respect for our financial decisions. It made me rethink our relationship. If our marriage can't be built on mutual respect and honesty, especially about finances, we might need to consider our future together. The idea that one spouse can take what the other has without discussing it isn't sustainable. If this approach remains, we might have to consider separating. It's okay, I suppose. The money was mine that I earned. We have some savings, so the loss shouldn't be too bad. If Kayla was in trouble, I understand the need to help, but a simple conversation with me would have been appreciated. The account is ours after all. If Jerry had taken the money from a personal account he set up before we married, I would have minded, but not as much. Taking such a large amount from our shared account without discussion felt like a breach of trust. When I expressed my disappointment, Jerry was dismissive. He frowned, irritated, and reluctantly promised to inform me next time before taking such actions. He then quickly excused himself to the bathroom. This left me feeling uneasy. It wasn't like the early days of our marriage when Jerry would listen sincerely and value my input. Is this what change looks like in a marriage? A few days later, I went to my in-laws' home to deliver a package mistakenly sent to our address. My mother-in-law, Amy, greeted me warmly and invited me in for tea. I accepted, even though I just wanted to leave the package. While there, I noticed several luxurious items around their house: expensive cosmetics, stylish clothing, and various health products. Amy casually mentioned that these were gifts from Jerry. I realized that the $22,000 had been spent extravagantly. The casual way this spending was treated made me question not only our financial partnership, but also the respect and communication in our marriage. When I found out that Jerry had lent the money to his mother because she was in need, I tried to understand. However, seeing that the funds were spent on luxury items didn't sit well with me. As I sat quietly sipping my tea, the atmosphere shifted noticeably. My in-laws' smiles faded, and they looked at me with a mix of fear and accusation. "My son is such a wonderful, generous boy, always buying gifts for me," my mother-in-law started, her tone turning confrontational. "But what about you? As his wife, are you taking good care of my wonderful son? There seems to be some trouble. I hear he mentioned getting a lot of blame from you for using the money to help me." It became clear that Jerry had made himself look like a victim to his parents, a good son just helping his mother. This revelation exhausted my patience with my in-laws and with Jerry. I had never expected such a lack of support and understanding in my marriage, making me seriously consider divorce. I started imagining a future where, after a divorce, I would move back to my parents' home, a two-story house over 32 years old, designed before my brother was born. It used to house our family of 5 comfortably, but now stood largely empty and was becoming impractical for my aging parents, who struggled with mobility. The house had some modifications, like handrails, but its spacious layout was hard for them to navigate. A one-story house would be much better for them. With my financial security from the inherited property, I could rebuild their home to be more comfortable and accessible. Filled with a mix of resolve and relief, I called my parents to discuss my plans for a divorce and the idea of rebuilding their house. Surprisingly, my parents weren't shocked by the news. Their reaction only solidified my decision, as it seemed they too understood the need for a change, supporting my desire to start anew and build a better environment for our family. The news of rebuilding their home brought genuine joy to my parents. Over the phone, I could sense their happiness as they thanked me. "I'm glad that you're planning to rebuild it for us. Thank you," they said. They reassured me that even if they couldn't live there for long, it wouldn't be a problem, as I could eventually take over the house since it was funded by my income. "Well then, I'll start preparing and planning it bit by bit," I replied, encouraged by their support. "Take it easy, just don't overdo it," they advised, their words lifting my spirits instantly. As I began organizing the rebuild of my parents' house, I awaited a response from the construction company. However, before any progress was made, Jerry confronted me aggressively. "How dare you use our savings to build a house without telling me anything about it?" he accused as we sat across from each other at the living room table. He banged his fist on the table, his voice rising without any regard for my feelings. "Well, my parents will live in the new house. I firmly stated that it was impossible because the house was meant for my parents. Jerry roared, insisting that since the house was built with what he thought was our shared property, his parents had a right to live in it too. "Are you planning to cram 5 people into that little one-story house? Just give me the house then," Jerry demanded, hitting the table louder. Worried about his reaction if he discovered the passive income I had kept secret, I decided it was time to reveal the whole truth. "To tell you the truth, I have passive income," I confessed. "I've been saving from the real estate gifted to me by my grandparents. I've paid for the rebuild with that passive income, so I didn't take a penny out of our common property." Feeling guilty for breaking a promise to my grandparents to keep this a secret, I watched as Jerry's reaction grew even more intense. He shook with anger and pounded the table harder. "What a bad wife you are, hiding the fact that you have an income. You play around with my money and protect your own by keeping secrets." His words stung, but they also clarified the deep issues in our marriage, issues of trust, respect, and shared goals, all of which seemed increasingly insurmountable. Seeing Jerry's face flush with rage, I suddenly grasped why my grandparents had advised me to keep my passive income a secret. Perhaps they had seen something in Jerry that I hadn't recognized until now. "I'll take the house as a lemony. Besides, any house you build while we're married is mine too. I am the head of the family, and if you disobey me, I will divorce you," he declared arrogantly. I was overwhelmed with dismay. How had I spent so many years with a man who could so easily disregard my feelings and contributions? Initially, I had planned to use the passive income for our future, especially if Jerry's earnings were insufficient, or if I was unable to work due to injury or illness. It was meant to be a safety net to support both of us, something I intended to share with him when the time was right. But now I no longer wished to use that money on him. Fed up, I stood up and left the house, needing space from the stifling atmosphere. I spent the night at a business hotel to clear my head and plan my next steps. Upon returning home the next morning, Jerry was waiting with a sly, unsettling smile. He approached me smirking and presented a sheet of paper he had been hiding. It was a set of divorce papers already filled out. "You're lying about your passive income, aren't you? You lied about it to hide that you were taking money from our shared property, didn't you?" he accused. His accusations were baseless and repetitive. Even though I was telling the truth and actually had passive income, he refused to believe me. "It's the truth. I have passive income," I insisted, but he wouldn't listen. Jerry's inability to trust and respect me was the last straw, making it clear that this marriage couldn't provide the support or partnership I needed. The next steps of legally separating our lives seemed unavoidable. Jerry shoved the divorce papers into my hand with a smirk and said, "You'll let me know when we can move in, okay?" He then patted me on the shoulder, walked out the door humming, and mentioned he was going out for a drink. At that moment, I saw who Jerry really was. Throughout our marriage, he had hidden his contempt for me, never truly valuing my feelings or perspectives. This realization hurt, but also set me free. I didn't waste any time. I packed up my things, filled out the divorce papers, and left our home right away. I moved in with my parents for now and explained everything to them. We agreed that I would stay with them until my new house was ready. The next day, my phone was filled with missed calls from Jerry, and he called again. I answered, hoping this would be our last conversation. "Hello." "Hey, all your stuff is gone, you know," he said, sounding confused and impatient. Why was he so worried? He was the one who wanted the divorce. "We're getting a divorce, so it's normal that I won't be coming back. Feel free to use the empty space however you like," I told him, trying to make my point clear. There was a pause. Maybe at that moment, Jerry realized I had income he couldn't control. Then, in a surprisingly sweet tone I had never heard before, he asked, "Can you let my parents live in the new house? I don't mind living with your parents, please." I was shocked. "I already told you it's a small one-story house," I reminded him. "It's meant as a surprise for my parents." His suggestion was ridiculous. He was trying to give away a house he didn't buy and acted like it was his to give. His disregard for the truth was puzzling. "You don't care about the savings, do you? You have no idea how much I worried about the money I gave you and what I saved for our living expenses," he continued. This conversation just confirmed my decision. Jerry's understanding of our finances and relationship was completely off. It was clear that moving forward without him was not just a choice but a necessity. As I tried to explain the effort I had put into managing our finances and making ends meet, he ignored the significance of my struggles. "That has nothing to do with what's happening here. You're just careless with money and leave all the hassle to others. And you act like you did everything yourself for your parents, right?" I confronted him, pointing out how he often took credit for my hard work. Jerry's sudden silence only added to my frustration. It was clear he was trying to take credit for everything and wanted to give the house I built for my parents to his own family, using my honesty to impress them. It was shallow and deceitful. "In the end, you're just trying to take advantage of my kindness and claim my property." There's no way to justify you trampling on my feelings and intentions like this. I won't give you the house I built with all my heart for my parents just so you can show off, I said firmly, rejecting his request outright. Jerry got louder, maybe out of desperation. But husbands and wives are supposed to help each other. I'll tell everyone that you built it, please. We're not a married couple anymore, are we? We're strangers now since I've already filed for divorce, I reminded him, making it clear that the boundaries had to be respected. On the day Jerry gave me the divorce papers, I submitted them to the city office right away. He had been the one pushing for the divorce, but when it became real, he seemed shocked. Yeah, you already filed it. Why are you surprised when you're the one who wanted the divorce? Oh, I didn't think you'd actually leave me. Let's start over. Let's talk it out and try to be a good couple this time, he pleaded, as if he didn't grasp the seriousness of his actions. How could he say this now? This was the same man who had wasted our savings on his mother, threatened me with divorce, and mocked me until the end. There was no chance for reconciliation. No, thank you. Please give my regards to your parents, I said cheerfully before ending the call. The next day, my phone was bombarded with voicemails and messages from Jerry, still insisting that we get back together. His persistence was confusing and unwelcome, confirming my decision to move on without him. Jerry claimed we could start over and that he loved me, but I felt he was more interested in my property and money than in our relationship. To cut ties completely, I blocked all his contact information and that of his parents. Meanwhile, the new house was finished, and my parents and I moved in. We're now living comfortably in the home I built. Later, I met with a mutual friend who also knew Jerry and shared the news of our divorce. My friend offered sympathy and updated me on what had happened with Jerry and his family. It turned out that Jerry had suddenly quit his job, saying he no longer needed to work hard because he had real estate. However, his company was left in a difficult spot because they couldn't reach him. The next day, Jerry tried to take back his resignation, but his bosses, frustrated by his sudden disappearance and the trouble it caused, gave him a stern lecture. They demanded an explanation, but Jerry, unable to admit he had been relying on my income, lied about his situation. Eventually, the truth about our divorce came out, and his lies were exposed. His company refused to rehire him, realizing he had tried to manipulate the situation. Jerry, who had previously mocked my passive income, was now in a tough spot. He moved back in with his parents, who were understandably upset, and is now struggling to find a new job due to his questionable departure from his last job. It seems he's facing the consequences of his actions. Meanwhile, my life has taken a positive turn. I'm living with my parents in the house I built, working in a job I love, and enjoying life. The passive income I had saved for our future will now support those who have truly stood by me. This new chapter has brought me a sense of renewal and peace, confirming that moving on was the best decision for my well-being.
The text message hit my phone at 2:47 a.m. Unusual activity detected on account ending in 4829. Log in to review. My heart stopped. Account 4829 was the retirement fund I'd spent 10 years building for my parents. Every overtime shift, every skipped vacation, every sorry I can't afford it dinner with friends. I grabbed my laptop with shaking hands. The balance showed $847. It should have been $127,000. My name is Tatum, and I'm 33 years old. For the past decade, I've worked 2 jobs, full-time at a financial planning firm and weekends doing bookkeeping for small businesses. While my friends were getting married, buying houses, and living their lives, I was putting every spare dollar into that account. Mom and Dad deserve security after raising 2 kids on teacher salaries. I still remember the night I opened that account. I was 23, fresh out of college, sitting at their kitchen table with all the paperwork spread out. "This is for you both," I'd said, sliding the documents across the worn formica. "I'm going to make sure you never have to worry about money when you retire." Dad had tears in his eyes. Mom hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "You're such a good daughter," she'd whispered. "We're so lucky to have you." Now, staring at that devastating balance, I felt like I was going to throw up. I called the bank's emergency line. The automated system cheerfully informed me that a withdrawal of $126,152.77 had been processed yesterday at 3:15 p.m., authorized by account holder Nora Garcia, my mother. I threw on clothes and drove to their house, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. It was almost 4 a.m., but I didn't care. I needed answers. The porch light was on when I pulled into their driveway. Through the living room window, I could see them sitting on the couch, wide awake, waiting. I used my key and walked in without knocking. "Tatum, honey!" Mom jumped up, her face bright with excitement. "We were hoping you'd come by." Dad was grinning from ear to ear, something I hadn't seen in years. On the coffee table sat a bottle of champagne, 2 glasses, and what looked like a photo album. "What did you do?" My voice came out flat, emotionless. "Oh, sweetheart, sit down." Mom patted the couch beside her. "We have the most wonderful news." "Where's my money?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Mom's smile faltered for just a second before snapping back into place. "Your money? Honey, that was the family fund. We talked about this." "No, we didn't. That was for your retirement. I've been working myself to death for 10 years to build that fund." Dad cleared his throat. "Tatum, maybe you should sit down." "I'm fine standing." "Where is it?" Mom opened the photo album with trembling hands. "Look at these beautiful pictures. Robbie's wedding was absolutely magical. The venue, the flowers, the band, everything was perfect." My stomach dropped. "You spent it on Robbie's wedding?" "It was an investment." Mom's voice got higher, more defensive. "Ruby's family is very well connected. Her father owns 3 restaurants and has connections all over the city. This marriage is going to open so many doors for Robbie." "You spent my retirement fund on a party?" "It wasn't just a party," Dad said quietly. "It was important for our family's future." I stared at the photos. My brother in his $1,000 tuxedo, his bride in what looked like a designer gown, tables decorated with flowers that probably cost more than I made in a month. "How much?" I asked. "The wedding was beautiful," Mom started. "How much did you spend?" Dad looked at his hands. "About 120,000. The room started spinning. "That was everything, every penny I saved." "Tatum, you have to understand," Mom said, reaching for my hand. I pulled away. "Robbie needed this. He's starting his life, building his career. You're already established. You're independent. You don't need—" "I don't need what? Security? A future? The money I worked for?" "You're alone," Mom said, and her words hit like a slap. "You'll be fine on your own. But Robbie has a wife now and hopefully children someday. This was an investment in the family's future." The front door opened and Robbie walked in, still glowing from his honeymoon tan. "Tatum!" Perfect timing. He crossed the room and pulled me into a hug that felt like a python's grip. "I wanted to thank you for making all this possible. The wedding was incredible, and Ruby's dad was so impressed. He's already talking about bringing me into one of his businesses." He stepped back, hands on my shoulders, beaming. "You're the best sister ever. I know you sacrificed a lot over the years, and I want you to know it wasn't for nothing. This is going to change everything for our family." I looked at his face, genuinely grateful, completely oblivious to what had just been stolen from me. Then I looked at my parents sitting there with their champagne and their photo album, waiting for me to smile and celebrate. Something cold settled in my chest, something that felt like the opposite of love. "I need to go," I said. "But we haven't even opened the champagne," Mom called as I headed for the door. I drove home in silence, my mind completely blank. It wasn't until I was sitting in my apartment at 5 a.m. staring at my laptop screen that the thoughts started coming. They weren't the thoughts of a loving daughter anymore. I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table drinking coffee and staring at bank statements until the sun came up. When my phone rang at 8 a.m., I almost didn't answer. "Tatum?" Mom's voice was cautious. "You left so suddenly last night. We're worried about you." "Are you?" "Of course we are. You seemed upset." I laughed, and it sounded harsh even to me. "Upset. Yeah, that's one word for it. Honey, I think you're overreacting. This is good news for the whole family. Ruby's father, Quincy, he's already invited us to dinner next week. He wants to discuss business opportunities with your father. What business opportunities? Dad's a retired high school math teacher. Well, maybe consulting or something. The point is, doors are opening because of this wedding, because of what we invested. What you stole. The line went quiet for a long moment. I think you need to come over so we can talk about this properly, Mom said finally. No. Tatum, I said no. I hung up and turned off my phone. By noon, I was sitting in Fiona's law office, my hands wrapped around a cup of tea I hadn't touched. They spent all of it. Fiona leaned back in her chair, her expression somewhere between shocked and furious. Every penny, 10 years of work gone in one day. Jesus, Tatum, I'm so sorry. Fiona had been my best friend since college. She was the only person who knew exactly how much I'd sacrificed for that fund. She'd watched me turn down trips, dates, promotions that would have required relocating, all to stay close and keep building that nest egg. What are my options? I asked. Legally, it's complicated. Your name was on the account, but so was your mother's. Technically, she had the right to withdraw the money, even though I was the only one putting money in. That's where it gets tricky. You'd have to prove the money was yours, not a gift to your parents. Do you have documentation showing your intent? I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos I'd taken of my old planning documents. I kept everything, every deposit slip, every transfer record, every email where I talked about building their retirement fund. Fiona studied the documents. This helps, but a civil suit would be expensive and time-consuming. And messy. Family court is brutal. What about criminal charges? Theft? Again, with her name on the account, it's not technically theft. The bank followed proper procedures. I felt something crack inside my chest, so they just get away with it. I didn't say that. Fiona's voice got quieter. There might be other angles to consider. Like what? Well, if they use that money for something that could be considered a gift to your brother, there might be tax implications. The IRS has rules about large gifts between family members. I sat up straighter. What kind of rules? If your parents paid for a wedding that cost over a certain amount and your brother was the beneficiary, that could be considered a gift. Gifts over $17,000 per year have to be reported. Gifts over the lifetime exemption limit, which is about $12 million, are taxable. But this was only $120,000, right? But here's the thing. If they didn't report it properly, or if they can't prove the money was legitimately theirs to give, the IRS gets very interested. They don't like unreported gifts, especially large ones. I felt a spark of something that might have been hope. What would happen? Penalties, interest, possible audit. If they can't prove the source of the funds or justify the gift, it could get expensive fast. How expensive? Depends on how deep the IRS wants to dig. But penalties for unreported gifts can be substantial, plus interest, plus the cost of dealing with an audit. I stared at her. You're talking about revenge? I'm talking about following the law. If your parents made a large gift and didn't report it properly, that's their problem, not yours. My phone buzzed. A text from Robbie. Hey sis, can we talk? Mom said you were upset about something. I showed Fiona the message. He doesn't even know, does he? She said. Know what? That the money came from you. He thinks your parents just had $120,000 lying around. The realization hit me like a physical blow. He has no idea what I sacrificed. None of them do. I thought about Robbie's grateful hug, his talk about family investments and open doors. He genuinely believed our parents had funded his fairy tale wedding out of their own resources. What would I need to do? I asked. Hypothetically. Fiona pulled out a legal pad. Hypothetically, you'd need to document everything, prove the money was yours, show the transfer to your brother was a gift, and file the appropriate forms with the IRS. Forms? Form 3520 for starters. It's for reporting large gifts. If your parents didn't file it and you have evidence they should have, the IRS would be very interested in that information. I picked up my tea and finally took a sip. It was cold, but I barely noticed. How long would something like that take? The IRS? They move fast when money's involved, especially unreported money. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Robbie. Mom's really worried. She says you're not answering calls. Everything okay? I looked at Fiona. I need copies of everything, every form, every regulation, every piece of documentation I'd need. Tatum, are you sure about this? Once you start down this road? They made their choice, I said. Now I'm making mine. 3 days later, I was sitting in my childhood bedroom, surrounded by boxes I'd never bothered to move out. Mom had finally worn me down with her calls, and I'd agreed to come over to talk things through properly. The room looked exactly the same as when I'd left for college. Pale yellow walls, twin bed with the floral comforter, my high school honor roll certificate still hanging crooked on the wall. Down the hall, Robbie's room had been converted into Dad's home office years ago. I found your old photo albums, Mom said, settling beside me on the bed with a shoebox. I thought maybe looking at some memories would help you understand. She opened the box and pulled out a picture from my high school graduation. There I was in my cap and gown, standing between my parents, all of us beaming. You were always so responsible, Mom said softly, even as a little girl. Remember when you were 8 and you started that savings jar for the family vacation? I remembered. I'd saved my allowance for 6 months dreaming of Disney World. When I finally had enough, Mom had used the money to buy Robbie a new bike instead. You said we needed the bike more than a vacation, I said. Well, we did. Robbie's old one was falling apart, and you were always so understanding about these things. She flipped to another photo, my college graduation. I was alone in this one, holding my diploma. My parents had missed the ceremony because Robbie had a baseball tournament that same weekend. We were so proud of you, Mom continued, getting that job right out of school, being so independent. Where were you when this was taken? Mom glanced at the photo and her smile faltered slightly. Oh, that was the weekend of Robbie's championship game. You understood why we couldn't make it? Did I have a choice? Tatum, what's gotten into you? You're being so negative about everything. I pulled out another photo, my 25th birthday party. It was just me and 2 co-workers at a restaurant. My family had forgotten entirely because it was the same day as Robbie's engagement party. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course, honey. When was the last time you and Dad did something special for me? Just for me? She laughed nervously. What do you mean? We do things for you all the time. Like what? Well, we always include you in family dinners, and we ask about your work. That's not what I meant. Tatum, I don't understand what you're getting at. I stood up and walked to my old desk, where a stack of birthday cards sat in a neat pile. I'd kept every one my parents had given me over the years. I pulled out the most recent one. Happy birthday, Tatum. Hope your day is special. Love, Mom and Dad. Generic drugstore card, no personal message, signed in Mom's handwriting. I grabbed another one from 3 years ago. Happy birthday, Tatum. Another year older. Love, Mom and Dad. Same handwriting, same generic sentiment. I pulled out Robbie's birthday card from last year, which I'd found mixed in with mine. To our amazing son on his special day. We're so proud of the man you've become and all your accomplishments. Your future is so bright, and we can't wait to see what this new year brings. You've always been our shining star. All our love, Mom and Dad. I held both cards up. Do you see the difference? Mom's face went red. Those are just cards, Tatum. No, they're not. They're proof. Proof of what? That I've never been your daughter. I've been your retirement plan. That's not fair, isn't it? I sat back down, suddenly exhausted. Mom, I need you to be honest with me. When you took that money, did you think about what it meant to me? Of course I did. Really? Because when I asked where it went, you called it the family fund, like it was never mine to begin with. Mom twisted her hands in her lap. It was for the family. You're part of this family. Am I? Because it feels like I'm just the person who pays for everyone else's dreams. You're being dramatic. I worked 2 jobs for 10 years, Mom. 10 years? I haven't taken a real vacation since college. I've never owned a new car. I live in a studio apartment with furniture from garage sales, and I did it all gladly because I thought I was building something for you and Dad. You were. No, I was building something for Robbie, just like I always have. The front door slammed, and we heard Robbie's voice echoing through the house. Mom? Dad? You here? In Tatum's room, Mom called back. Robbie appeared in the doorway, still in his work clothes, looking concerned. Hey, what's going on? Dad said you two were having some kind of heart-to-heart. We're just looking at old photos, Mom said quickly. Robbie's eyes landed on the birthday cards scattered on the bed. He picked up his card and read it, then grabbed one of mine. Wow, Mom, you really phoned it in on Tatum's cards, huh? He laughed, but it sounded forced. They're fine, Mom said defensively. Another year older? Come on. He looked at me. Is this what you're upset about? Birthday cards? It's not about the cards, Robbie. Then what? Mom said you were mad about the wedding, but I don't get it. You should be happy for me. I stared at him, my little brother, golden boy, the one who'd never had to work for anything because I was always there to pick up the slack. Do you know where the money for your wedding came from? What do you mean? Mom and Dad paid for it. With what money? He shrugged. Their savings, I guess. They said they'd been putting money aside. They don't have savings, Robbie. Dad's pension barely covers their mortgage. His smile faded. What are you talking about? I looked at Mom, giving her one last chance to tell the truth. She stared at her hands. The money came from me, I said. Every penny. I've been building a retirement fund for them for 10 years, and they spent it all on your wedding. Robbie's face went white. That's not... Mom? It was family money, Mom said weakly. No, I said, standing up. It was my money, my sacrifice, my future, and now it's gone. The room went completely silent. Robbie looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. I didn't know, he whispered. Of course you didn't, I said. You never had to know. That's the point. I walked past both of them toward the door. Where are you going? Mom called. Home. I have work to do. I spent the next week turning my dining table into a war room. Bank statements, tax documents, receipts, emails, everything spread out in neat piles. Fiona had given me a thick folder of IRS forms and regulations, and I was working through them methodically. My phone kept buzzing with texts from Robbie, but I ignored them all. The doorbell rang on Saturday morning. I looked through the peephole and saw him standing there with 2 coffee cups and a bag from my favorite bakery. I know you're in there, he called. Your car's in the driveway. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. Peace offering? He held up the coffee and pastries. I got those cinnamon rolls you like. What do you want, Robbie? To talk, to understand what happened. I stepped aside and let him in. His eyes immediately went to my dining table covered in paperwork. Jesus, Tatum, what is all this? Research. He set the coffee down and picked up one of the IRS forms. Form 3520? What's this for? Reporting large gifts. Gifts? He looked confused. What gifts? Your wedding. If Mom and Dad paid for it with money that wasn't theirs and you were the beneficiary, That's technically a gift. Gifts over a certain amount have to be reported to the IRS. The color drained from his face. Are you serious? Very. Tatum, you can't be thinking of what? Following the law? He sat down heavily in one of my chairs. This is insane. We're family. Are we? I pulled out my laptop and showed him the spreadsheet I'd been working on. Look at this. Every deposit I made into that account for 10 years, every overtime shift, every weekend job, every sacrifice, it's all documented. He scrolled through the numbers, his expression getting more stricken with each line. I had no idea it was this much. $127,000 plus interest. Tatum, I'm so sorry. If I had known, you would have what? Said no to the fancy wedding? Told Mom and Dad you didn't need their money? He was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. That's honest, at least. Look, what if I pay you back? Ruby and I could take out a loan or something. With what income? You're still working at that marketing firm making $40,000 a year. Ruby's dad might give me a job. Might? Based on what? Your impressive work history of 3 different jobs in 5 years? He flinched. That's not fair. None of this is fair, Robbie. That's the point. My phone rang. Mom's name appeared on the screen. Don't answer it, Robbie said quickly. Why not? Because she's freaking out. She's been calling me nonstop since you left the other day, asking what you meant about the money being yours. I answered the call and put it on speaker. Tatum, honey, I'm so glad you picked up. I've been thinking about our conversation and I realized there might have been some miscommunication. What kind of miscommunication? Well, about the retirement fund. I think you might have gotten the wrong impression about whose money it was. Robbie was shaking his head frantically, but I kept talking. What impression should I have gotten? That it was a family fund. We all contributed to it over the years. Really? Show me your contributions. Well, we contributed by raising you and supporting you. Mom, I have 10 years of bank records. Every single deposit came from my accounts. You and Dad never put a penny into that fund. The line went quiet. That's not how I remember it, she said finally. Then your memory is wrong. Tatum, you're being very hurtful right now. Am I? Or am I being accurate? Robbie grabbed the phone. Mom, I'm here too. We need to figure this out. Oh, Robbie, thank goodness. Maybe you can talk some sense into your sister. Actually, Mom, I think Tatum has a point. I saw the records. She really did put in all that money. But it was for the family. No, I said, taking the phone back. It was for you and Dad's retirement, not for Robbie's wedding, not for impressing his in-laws, for your security when you got older. We can still use it for that. With what money? You spent it all. Well, maybe Robbie and Ruby can help us when we need it. I looked at Robbie, who was staring at the floor. And can you? I asked him. I don't know. Maybe. Ruby's family has money. Ruby's family's money isn't your money. And even if it was, you think they're going to support Mom and Dad indefinitely? I don't know, Tatum. I'm trying to figure this out, too. Here's what I figured out, I said. Mom and Dad made a choice. They chose to gamble their future on your marriage to a rich girl. They chose to spend money that wasn't theirs without asking. They chose to lie about where it came from. We didn't lie, Mom's voice came through the speaker. We just didn't think you'd understand. Understand what? That you stole from me? It wasn't stealing. Then what was it? The line went quiet again. I think, Mom said carefully, that you're overreacting to this whole situation. I hung up. Robbie was staring at me. What are you going to do? I pulled out the Form 3520 I've been filling out. I'm going to file this with the IRS on Monday. Tatum, please, think about what you're doing. I have been thinking about it, for a week straight. This could ruin them. They ruined themselves. He stood up, leaving his coffee untouched. I can't believe you're actually going through with this. I can't believe it took me this long to realize what kind of family I have. He walked to the door, then turned back. What if I could get the money back somehow? What if I could make this right? How? I don't know yet, but what if I could? I looked at him, really looked at him. For just a moment, he looked like the little brother I used to protect from bullies, the one I'd helped with homework and driven to baseball practice. You have until Monday, I said. That's not enough time. Then you better get started. He left without another word. I sat back down at my dining table and picked up my pen. The forms weren't going to fill themselves out. Monday came and went. No call from Robbie. I mailed the forms to the IRS on Tuesday morning, then went to work like nothing had happened. But something had changed in me. I felt lighter, like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't realize was there. My phone started ringing Wednesday evening, Mom's number. Tatum, we need to talk. About what? Robbie told us what you're planning to do. This is going too far. I already did it, Mom. The forms were submitted yesterday. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. You actually reported us to the IRS? I reported an unreported gift. The IRS will decide what to do about it. How could you do this to your own family? The same way you could steal from me, I guess. We didn't steal. I hung up. Thursday, Robbie showed up at my office. My assistant buzzed me. Your brother's here. He says it's urgent. I found him pacing in the lobby, his hair disheveled, still wearing yesterday's clothes. We need to talk, he said. Here? Anywhere, please. I led him to a conference room and closed the door. I tried, he said immediately. I really tried to get the money back. And? Ruby's dad won't lend it to us. He says we need to learn to manage our own finances before he'll trust us with that kind of money. Smart man. I talked to the bank about a loan, but they won't approve us for that much. My credit's not great, and Ruby's is tied up in student loans. What about your parents-in-law? Couldn't they just give you the money? Robbie's face flushed. I can't ask them for $120,000, Tatum. What would I even say? Hey, my parents stole my sister's retirement fund to pay for our wedding. Can you bail us out? You could try the truth. The truth would destroy Ruby's opinion of our family. Her parents already think we're... He trailed off. What? Poor beneath them. They're just very careful about money. Quincy built his business from nothing, and he doesn't respect people who are careless with finances. Like people who spend money that isn't theirs? Exactly. He slumped in his chair. Tatum, please, there has to be another way. There was. You had until Monday to figure it out. Can't you call the IRS back? Tell them it was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. But the penalties, Mom and Dad could lose their house. They should have thought of that before they spent my money. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Meet me at Riverside Cafe at 6 p.m. Come alone. Q. I stared at the message. Robbie, does Quincy have my phone number? What? No, why would he? Wait, let me see that. I showed him the text. His face went white. Oh, shit. What? He knows. Ruby's dad knows about the money. How? I don't know. Maybe Ruby figured it out. She's been asking questions about how Mom and Dad could afford such an expensive wedding on a teacher's pension. And you told her what? That they'd been saving for years. But she's smart, Tatum. She works in finance. She probably did the math. I looked at the text again. Why does he want to meet with me? I have no idea, but Quincy doesn't do anything without a reason. At 6 p.m., I walked into Riverside Cafe. Quincy was already there, sitting in a corner booth, wearing an expensive suit and reading something on his tablet. He looked up when I approached. "Tatum, thank you for coming." "Mr. Wallace." "Please call me Quincy. Sit." I slid into the booth across from him. He signaled the waitress for coffee. "I'll get straight to the point," he said. "I know about the retirement fund." "What about it?" "That your parents used your money to pay for the wedding, that you reported them to the IRS, that my daughter's marriage is built on a foundation of theft and lies." I didn't say anything. "Ruby doesn't know yet," he continued, "but she will. She's been digging into your family's finances because something didn't add up. She's very thorough." "Good for her." "Indeed, she gets that from me." He leaned back. "Here's my problem, Tatum. My daughter married into your family believing they were financially stable, responsible people. Now I discover they're thieves who stole from their own daughter to impress me. That about sums it up. Which puts me in an awkward position. I can't have my family associated with this kind of scandal. It's bad for business." "What are you suggesting?" "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm telling you what's going to happen." His voice got colder. "You're going to withdraw your complaint to the IRS." "No, I'm not." "Yes, you are. Because if you don't, I'll make sure everyone in this town knows exactly what kind of family the Garcias are. Your parents will be social pariahs, your brother will lose any chance of a decent job, and you'll be known as the vindictive sister who destroyed her own family over money." I stared at him. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm explaining consequences. I have connections throughout this city. One word from me and your family becomes untouchable." "And if I withdraw the complaint?" "Then this stays between us. Your parents avoid the IRS penalties. Your brother keeps his marriage and everyone moves on." "What about my money?" "Consider it a wedding gift, a very expensive lesson in family loyalty." I picked up my coffee and took a slow sip, buying time to think. "There's just one problem with your plan, Quincy." "What's that?" "You're assuming I care more about my family's reputation than I do about justice." His eyes narrowed. "Everyone cares about their family's reputation." "Not everyone." I stood up. "Thanks for the coffee." "Tatum, sit down. We're not finished." "Yes, we are." I walked toward the door, then turned back. "Oh, and Quincy? You might want to have that conversation with Ruby sooner rather than later, because when the IRS starts their investigation, it's all going to come out anyway." I left him sitting there, his face red with anger. My phone started buzzing before I even reached my car. The calls started immediately. First Robbie, then Mom, then Dad, then Robbie again. I let them all go to voicemail. By Friday morning, I had 17 missed calls and a dozen text messages. The last one from Robbie was just, "Call me, urgent." I was finishing my coffee when someone pounded on my door. Through the peephole, I could see Ruby standing on my porch, her face flushed and angry. I opened the door. "Ruby, we need to talk, now. Come in." She stormed past me into the living room, her designer heels clicking on my hardwood floors. She looked around at my modest apartment like she was seeing it for the first time. "Is it true?" she demanded. "Is what true?" "That my wedding was paid for with stolen money." "Technically, it wasn't stolen." "Don't give me technicalities. Did my husband's parents take money that belonged to you to pay for our wedding?" I sat down on my couch. "Yes." She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "How much?" $127,000. "Jesus Christ!" She started pacing. "My father told me last night. He said you filed some kind of report with the IRS." "I did." "Do you have any idea what this means? What this could do to Robbie, to our marriage?" "I'm starting to get a picture." She whirled around to face me. "This isn't a joke, Tatum. My father is furious. He's talking about cutting ties with our entire family." "Your entire family or just mine?" Don't be smart with me. You know what I mean. Actually, I don't. You married Robbie, not me. This is between me and my parents. No, it's not. She sat down across from me, her voice getting more desperate. Don't you see? If this comes out, if there's an investigation, it reflects on all of us. My father's business, his reputation, he can't be associated with this kind of scandal. Then maybe you should have asked more questions about where the money came from. I trusted my husband's family. I thought they were honest people. So did I. She stared at me for a long moment. You really hate them, don't you? I don't hate anyone. I'm just done being their safety net. But you're destroying innocent people in the process. Like who? Like me, like Robbie. We didn't know where the money came from. Robbie's not innocent. He's 28 years old. He should have questioned how his parents suddenly had 6 figures to spend on his wedding. He trusted them. And I trusted them too. Look how that worked out. Ruby pulled out her phone. What if I paid you back? Right now, I could transfer the money today. You have $127,000 just sitting around? I have a trust fund. I could access it. I studied her face. Why would you do that? To make this go away, to protect my marriage. And then what? Your parents-in-law get away with stealing from me and you're out 6 figures? It's better than the alternative, which is my father destroys your family, and probably mine too in the process. My phone rang. Fiona's name appeared on the screen. I need to take this, I told Ruby. Tatum? Fiona's voice was tight. Where are you? At home. Why? I just got a call from someone claiming to represent Quincy Wallace. They're threatening to sue me for advising you on the IRS filing. I looked at Ruby, who was watching me intently. On what grounds? They're claiming I helped you file a false report, that I'm part of some conspiracy to damage their family's reputation. That's ridiculous. Of course it is. But they're also threatening to file a complaint with the state bar, claiming I violated ethics rules by helping you target your own family. Can they do that? They can try. It would be expensive to defend, even if it's baseless. Ruby was leaning forward, clearly trying to hear both sides of the conversation. Fiona, I'm sorry. I never meant to drag you into this. I know, but Tatum, these people play hardball. They have resources and connections. Are you sure you want to keep fighting this? I looked around my small apartment, my garage sale furniture, my secondhand everything, the life I'd built on sacrifice and careful budgeting. Yes, I said, I'm sure. Okay, then we need to be smart about this. Don't talk to anyone from their side without me present, and document everything. I hung up and turned back to Ruby. Your father's going after my lawyer now? He's protecting his interests by threatening innocent people, by doing whatever it takes to keep his family's name clean. Interesting definition of clean. Ruby stood up. Last chance, Tatum. Let me pay you back. You withdraw the complaint, and this all goes away quietly. And my parents learned nothing. Robbie learns nothing. The cycle continues. What cycle? The one where I sacrifice everything and everyone else benefits. So this is about more than money. It was always about more than money. She walked to the door, then turned back. You know, I actually feel sorry for you. Why? Because you're so focused on punishing them that you can't see you're punishing yourself too. When this is over, when the dust settles, you'll still be alone. But now you'll be alone and bitter. Maybe, but I'll also be free. She left without another word. I sat in my quiet apartment thinking about what she'd said. My phone buzzed with another text from an unknown number. This is your last warning. Drop the complaint or face the consequences. You have 24 hours. I screenshot the message and forwarded it to Fiona with a note. Add this to the evidence file. Then I turned off my phone and went to make dinner. I had a feeling it was going to be a long weekend. The dinner invitation came from Mom on Sunday afternoon. "Family dinner tonight at 6, her voicemail said. "We need to discuss this situation like adults. Ruby and Quincy will be joining us." I almost didn't go, but something about the formal tone, the mention of Quincy being there, it felt like a trap I needed to walk into with my eyes open. I arrived at my parents' house at exactly 6 p.m. 3 cars were already in the driveway, Mom's sedan, Robbie's Honda, and a black Mercedes that had to be Quincy's. The dining room table was set with Mom's good china, the kind she only used for special occasions. Everyone was already seated when I walked in, Mom and Dad at opposite ends, Robbie and Ruby on one side, Quincy across from them. The only empty chair was next to Quincy. "Tatum, sweetheart," Mom said, her voice artificially bright. "You look lovely. Sit, sit." I took the chair next to Quincy, who nodded politely but didn't speak. "I made your favorite," Mom continued, bringing out a casserole dish, chicken and rice. The small talk felt surreal. Dad asked about my work. Ruby complimented Mom's cooking. Quincy discussed the weather. We could have been any normal family having Sunday dinner, except for the tension crackling under every word. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. "So, Tatum, we wanted to talk about this misunderstanding." "What misunderstanding?" "About the retirement fund," Mom said carefully. "I think we all got our wires crossed about what that money was for." "I don't think there's any confusion. I put money in, you took it out, you spent it on Robbie's wedding." Quincy set down his fork. "Perhaps we could discuss a resolution that works for everyone." "I'm listening." "Your parents have agreed to pay you back over time, monthly installments until the full amount is repaid." I looked at Mom and Dad. "With what money?" "We'll figure it out," Dad said quietly. "Maybe I could do some tutoring, or Mom could go back to work part-time." "You're 60 and 57 years old. You think you can earn $127,000 with tutoring and part-time work?" "We have to try," Mom said. "We made a mistake and we want to make it right." "The mistake was spending money that wasn't yours. Making it right would have been asking permission first." Robbie leaned forward. "Tatum, please, we're trying to fix this." "Are you? Or are you trying to make it go away so Quincy doesn't cut ties with your family?" Quincy's expression didn't change, but Ruby's face flushed. "Both," Quincy said calmly. "I believe in solving problems efficiently. This isn't a business problem, it's a family problem. All problems can be solved with the right approach." The doorbell rang. Mom looked confused. "I'm not expecting anyone." Dad got up to answer it. We heard voices in the hallway, then Dad returned with a man in a suit carrying an official-looking envelope. "Nora Garcia?" the man asked. "That's me," Mom said nervously. "I have a certified delivery for you. Please sign here." Mom's hand shook as she signed the receipt. The man left, and she stared at the envelope like it might explode. "What is it?" Dad asked. Mom tore it open and pulled out several official documents. Her face went white as she read. "It's from the IRS," she whispered. They're auditing us, and there's a penalty assessment for unreported gifts." She handed the papers to Dad, whose face crumpled as he read. "How much?" Robbie asked. Dad's voice was barely audible. $43,000 in penalties, plus interest, plus the cost of the audit." The room went completely silent except for the ticking of Mom's antique clock. Quincy reached for the papers. Dad handed them over without resistance. Quincy read through them methodically, his expression growing darker with each page. "This is a disaster," he said finally. "We can fight it," Ruby said desperately. "Get a lawyer, appeal the decision." "With what money?" Quincy's voice was ice cold. "They can't even pay back what they stole, let alone fight the federal government." "We didn't steal anything," Mom said weakly. You took money that wasn't yours without permission and used it for your son's benefit. That's theft. He stood up. Ruby, we're leaving. Dad, wait! No, I will not have my family associated with this scandal. The wedding was paid for with stolen money, which means our entire relationship with this family is built on fraud. Robbie jumped up. Mr. Wallace, please, we can work this out. There's nothing to work out. You're married to my daughter under false pretenses. Your parents are criminals, and you're either complicit or incompetent. That's not fair, Ruby said, tears starting to fall. Fair? Quincy turned to me. You want to know what's fair? Fair would have been your parents asking before they spent money that wasn't theirs. Fair would have been your brother questioning where $100,000 came from. Fair would have been someone in this family having the integrity to do the right thing. He looked around the table. Instead, I find out my daughter's wedding was funded by theft, and when the victim tries to seek justice, you all gang up on her to make the problem disappear. We're trying to make it right, Dad said. No, you're trying to avoid consequences. There's a difference. Quincy walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back to me. For what it's worth, you did the right thing. They made their choice when they took your money. Everything that happens now is on them. Ruby was sobbing now. Dad, please don't do this. I'm not doing anything, Ruby. They did this, all of it. He left. Ruby looked around the table at all of us, her face streaked with tears and mascara. I hope you're happy, she said to me. You got your revenge. This isn't revenge, I said quietly. This is consequences. She ran after her father, leaving the four of us sitting around the table with Mom's good china and the IRS papers scattered between the serving dishes. Well, I said, standing up, thanks for dinner. I walked out, leaving them sitting in the wreckage of their own making. My phone was buzzing with texts before I even reached my car, but I didn't look at them. I had nothing left to say. The phone calls stopped after 3 weeks. The texts dwindled to nothing. Even Robbie gave up trying to reach me. I was working late on a Thursday when Fiona knocked on my office door. Got a minute? She asked, holding 2 cups of coffee. Always. What's the update? Your parents' audit is moving forward. The IRS isn't budging on the penalties. She sat down across from my desk. But there's something else. I got a call from Ruby's divorce attorney. I looked up from my computer. She's divorcing Robbie? Papers were filed yesterday. She's citing fraud as grounds, specifically that the marriage was entered into under false financial pretenses. Wow. It gets better. Quincy cut all business ties with your brother. Robbie lost the job he was promised, and apparently Ruby's been staying with her parents since the dinner. The marriage lasted exactly 6 weeks. I leaned back in my chair. How do you feel about that? Honestly, I don't feel anything. Is that terrible? After what they put you through? No, it's not terrible. It's human. My office phone rang. The caller ID showed my parents' number. I stared at it for 4 rings, then answered. Hello, Dad. Tatum? His voice sounded older, tired. Can we talk? We're talking now. I mean in person, please. I looked at Fiona, who shrugged. Where? Neutral ground. That coffee shop on 5th Street? When? Now? I'm already here. I found him sitting in a corner booth, looking smaller than I remembered. His hair seemed grayer, his shoulders more stooped. There was a cup of coffee in front of him that looked untouched. Thank you for coming, he said as I sat down. What do you want, Dad? To apologize. Really apologize, not the half-hearted attempts your mother and I made before. I didn't say anything. We were wrong, he continued, not just about taking the money, but about everything. The way we treated you, the way we favored Robbie, the way we took your sacrifices for granted. Okay. I know okay doesn't fix anything. I know sorry doesn't give you back 10 years of your life. No, it doesn't. He pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. This is what we can offer. It's not much, but it's a start. I opened it. A cashier's check for $8,000. We sold your mother's jewelry and my golf clubs, canceled our cable and phone plans, switched to the cheapest everything. We're going to pay you back, Tatum, every penny, even if it takes the rest of our lives. Dad, you can't earn $120,000 on a teacher's pension. Maybe not, but we can try, and we can make sure you know that we understand what we did to you. I stared at the check. $8,000. It was more than I'd expected, but a fraction of what they owed. Where's Mom? At home. She wanted to come, but she's not handling this well. The shame, the embarrassment, losing Robbie's marriage, it's eating her up. And Robbie? Moved back in with us. Lost his job, his wife, his future with the Wallace family. He's pretty broken up about it. I'm sure he is. Dad leaned forward. Tatum, I need you to know something. This isn't your fault. None of it. We made our choices and we're living with the consequences. You don't owe us forgiveness and you don't owe us a relationship. But I needed you to know that we finally understand what we lost. What did you lose? The best daughter any parent could ask for. Someone who loved us enough to sacrifice her own dreams for our security. Someone who deserved so much better than what we gave her. I folded the check and put it in my purse. I need to go. Will you consider staying in touch? Not for our sake, but because you're our daughter and we love you. I stood up. I'll think about it. That's more than we deserve. I walked toward the door, then turned back. Dad? Yes? Get some help for Mom and for Robbie. This kind of shame and guilt, it can destroy people if they don't deal with it properly. We will, thank you. I drove home through the city I'd lived in my whole life, past the office where I'd worked overtime for years, past the apartment complex where I'd chosen the cheapest unit to save money for people who didn't appreciate it. But for the first time in a decade, I wasn't driving toward an obligation or a sacrifice or someone else's emergency. I was just driving home to my own life. My phone buzzed with a text from Chelsea, my ex from college. Saw your LinkedIn update about the promotion. Congratulations. Want to grab dinner and catch up? I'd gotten the promotion 2 weeks ago, senior financial advisor, a position I'd been qualified for years, but never pursued because I was too focused on my family's needs. I texted back, I'd love that. How about Saturday? Her response came immediately. Perfect. I have so much to tell you. I pulled into my driveway and sat in my car for a moment, looking at my small apartment. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Paid for with my own money, decorated with my own choices, filled with my own dreams instead of other people's expectations. My phone rang. Fiona's name appeared on the screen. How did it go? She asked. Better than expected. He apologized, really apologized. And I think maybe someday I might be able to have a relationship with them again, but not now, not yet. That's fair. What about Robbie? What about him? Are you going to reach out? I thought about my little brother, the golden child who had lost his golden future. Part of me felt sorry for him, but a bigger part of me remembered 28 years of being invisible while he shined. No, I said. He's an adult. He can figure out his own life. Good for you. I hung up and walked into my apartment. On my kitchen counter was a stack of travel brochures I'd picked up during lunch. Italy, Greece, Japan, all the places I dreamed of visiting but never could afford. Now I could afford them. Now I could afford a lot of things. I opened my laptop and started browsing flights to Rome. Karma hadn't asked for my forgiveness, just my patience. And now that it had done its work, I was finally free to live my own life. The best revenge, it turned out, wasn't destruction. It was freedom.
The letter arrived on a Tuesday. Thick cream paper, embossed letterhead, the kind that makes your heart skip before you even break the seal. I stared at it for a full minute in my cramped studio apartment, surrounded by instant ramen containers and textbooks held together with duct tape. We are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted into the doctoral program. My name is Rosalind, and I'd been waiting for this moment for 3 years. 3 years of night classes, weekend study sessions, and scholarship applications written at 2 a.m. after 12-hour workdays. The program was fully funded. Tuition, living expenses, even a small stipend. It was my ticket out. I called Mum immediately. "Rosalind, honey, you know, Tuesday is my yoga day," Penelope answered, slightly breathless. "Can this wait?" "I got in," I said, gripping the letter. "The doctoral program at Cambridge. Full scholarship." Silence. Then, "Oh, well, that's nice, dear. Listen, can you transfer an extra 500 this week? Varda needs new tyres, and you know how she is about driving on those old ones." My stomach dropped. "Mum, did you hear what I said? Cambridge, doctorate, this is..." Yes, very impressive. We'll talk about it at dinner Sunday. Don't forget the wine." The line went dead. I sat there holding my phone, staring at the acceptance letter. In the corner of my vision, my laptop displayed my banking app. Checking account balance, $347. My sister's Instagram story showed her at some trendy brunch spot, mimosas and avocado toast artfully arranged, tagged with "living my best life." A Sunday dinner at Mum's house was a ritual I'd been trapped in for 6 years, ever since Dad died and left me as the designated responsible one. The house was a sprawling colonial in the best part of town, the kind with a circular driveway and professionally maintained landscaping. I paid for all of it. "There's my hard-working girl." Mum swept me into a hug that smelled like expensive perfume and white wine. "Varda's in the living room. She has news." Varda was draped across the leather sectional like a Renaissance painting, all flowing hair and dramatic gestures. At 24, she perfected the art of being perpetually in crisis. "Ros, thank God you're here. I'm having an absolute breakdown about this wedding I'm supposed to be in next month. The bride is being such a bridezilla about the dress. It's $300. Can you believe it?" "You don't have $300, I asked, settling into the chair across from her. "Well, technically no, but that's not the point. The point is the principle. She should be paying for our dresses if she's going to be so picky about them." Mum emerged from the kitchen, carrying a bottle of wine that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. "Girls, dinner's ready. Rosalind, be a dear and grab the salad." We settled around the dining table and I waited for the right moment. Mum was halfway through her second glass of wine. Varda was picking at her food while scrolling through her phone. Perfect. "I have some news," I said, setting down my fork. "Oh." Mum looked up with mild interest. "I got accepted to a doctoral program, Cambridge, full scholarship." Varda's head snapped up from her phone. "Wait, what?" "It's a 3-year program, fully funded. I'd be studying international relations with a focus on economic policy." The silence stretched uncomfortably. Mum's wine glass hovered halfway to her lips. "When would this start?" she asked carefully. "September. I'd need to move to England by August." Varda laughed, sharp and disbelieving. "You're joking, right?" "No, I'm not joking. This is what I've been working toward for years." "Rosalind," Mum set down her glass with deliberate precision. "Honey, you can't be serious. What about us? What about your responsibilities here?" "What responsibilities?" "Don't be obtuse. You know exactly what I mean. The house, the car payments, Varda's expenses. We depend on you." "You depend on my money," I said quietly. Varda's eyes flashed. "That's not fair. We're family. Family takes care of each other." "I have been taking care of you. For 6 years. I've put my entire life on hold." "Oh, please. Varda rolled her eyes. Don't be so dramatic. It's not like you had some amazing life planned out. You work at an insurance company. The words hit like a slap. I work at an insurance company to pay for your lifestyle. Girls, please. Mum's voice took on that particular tone, the one that meant she was about to deploy the heavy artillery. Roslyn, sweetheart, I understand this feels important to you, but let's be realistic. You're 28 years old. Don't you think you're a little old to be playing student again? Playing student? This whole academic thing, it's a lovely hobby, but it's not practical. We need you here. We need you to be responsible. I looked between them. Mum with her perfectly styled hair and designer blouse, Varda with her manicured nails and sulky expression. Both of them staring at me like I'd suggested burning the house down. So, what you're saying is, I should turn down a full scholarship to one of the world's best universities so I can keep funding your shopping habits. Don't be cruel, Mum said, her voice trembling slightly. You know it's more than that. You know how much we love you, how much we need you. After your father died, you became the backbone of this family. Would you really abandon us now? The guilt hit exactly where she'd aimed it. I felt my resolve cracking, the familiar weight of obligation settling back onto my shoulders. I started, then stopped. They were both watching me, waiting. Of course not, I heard myself say. You're right. Family comes first. Mum's smile was radiant. I knew you'd see sense. Now, about that extra money for Varda's tyres. I nodded and made the appropriate noises, but inside something had shifted, something cold and final. Later that night, alone in my apartment, I sat on my bed holding the acceptance letter and my phone. The number was programmed in my contacts, but I'd never had reason to call it before. Francis Brewer, family attorney, answered on the second ring. Francis, it's Roslyn Morgan. I took a deep breath. It's time. Francis's office smelled like leather and old books, the kind of place where serious decisions got made. I'd been here exactly once before, 6 years ago, when Dad's will was read. Back then, I'd been too grief-stricken to pay attention to the details. Roslyn, please, sit. Francis gestured to the chair across from his mahogany desk. He was exactly as I remembered, silver-haired, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, the sort of man who radiated quiet competence. I wasn't sure you'd remember me, I said, settling into the leather chair. Of course I remember. You're the one who's been keeping everything afloat. He pulled out a thick file folder. Your father spoke about you often. He was very proud. My throat tightened. He never told me about the trust details. He wanted to. Near the end, he regretted not explaining everything to you sooner. Francis opened the folder, revealing pages of legal documents. He assumed he'd have more time. So, what exactly am I looking at here? Francis spread several documents across the desk. The Morgan Family Trust, established by your grandfather in 1987. Your father was the primary trustee until his death, at which point control passed to you as the eldest child. And that means what, exactly? It means you have complete discretionary control over all trust distributions. Your mother and sister receive their monthly allowances only at your approval. I stared at the papers. They don't know this. No, your father handled everything directly. After he died, I simply continued the automatic payments as instructed. But legally, you've been the sole decision maker for 6 years. Jesus. I picked up one of the documents, scanning the dense legal text. How much are we talking about? The trust is currently valued at approximately $2.8 million. Your mother receives $4,000 monthly. Your sister receives $2,500. My hands went numb. $78,000 a year. I've been killing myself working 60-hour weeks while they get $78,000 a year for existing. There's more. Francis flipped to another page. Article 7, subsection C, the self-sufficiency clause, which is, any beneficiary over the age of 21 must demonstrate reasonable efforts toward financial independence. Failure to do so can result in reduced or suspended distributions. I looked up at him. Define reasonable efforts. Francis's smile was subtle but unmistakable. Employment, education, vocational training. The trustee has broad discretion to determine what constitutes adequate effort. And if they refuse, then the trustee can suspend payments indefinitely. I sat back in my chair, mind racing. They have no idea. None whatsoever. Your father was protective of their feelings. Protective? I laughed, but there was no humour in it. He was enabling them. Perhaps. But you're not your father, Rosalind? What would you like to do? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Vada. Emergency. My credit card got declined at Nordstrom. Can you transfer $800 ASAP? Love you. I showed Francis the screen. He raised an eyebrow. I wanted to implement the self-sufficiency clause, I said. Immediately. That's well within your rights. How do you want to structure it? Give them 30 days' notice. After that, payments are contingent on proof of job applications, interviews, or enrollment in job training programs. Francis was already taking notes. And if they comply? Reduced payments. Say, $1,500 for Mum, $1,000 for Vada. Enough to motivate them, but not enough to maintain their current lifestyle. And if they don't comply? 0. Francis nodded approvingly. I'll draft the notification letters today. They'll be delivered by certified mail. How long before this takes effect? 30 days from delivery. I'd recommend documenting everything, their responses, any threats or manipulation attempts. This kind of change often brings out the worst in people. I thought about Sunday dinner, about Mum's trembling voice and Vada's casual cruelty. I'm counting on it. An hour later, I met Ellie at our usual coffee shop. She took one look at my face and ordered us both double shots. You look like you've seen a ghost, she said, sliding into the booth across from me. I just found out I've been in control of my family's money for 6 years and never knew it. Ellie's eyes widened. What do you mean? I explained everything. The trust, the monthly payments, the self-sufficiency clause. Ellie listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from surprise to something that looked like fierce satisfaction. So you're telling me, she said slowly, that while you've been eating ramen and working yourself to death, they've been living off a trust fund you control? $78,000 a year. Holy shit! Ellie leaned back. What are you going to do? I'm cutting them off. Good. Her response was immediate and emphatic. It's about damn time. You don't think I'm being vindictive? Vindictive? Ros, they made you turn down Cambridge. They made you feel guilty for wanting a life. That's not family. That's parasitism. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Vada. Hello? I'm literally standing in the store. This is embarrassing. I showed Ellie the message. She snorted. Let her be embarrassed. Maybe it'll be educational. Francis is sending the letters today. How long do they have? 30 days to find jobs or start job training. Ellie grinned. This is going to be epic. You know they're going to lose their minds. I'm counting on it. You need to document everything. Screenshots, recordings if it's legal in your state, witnesses to conversations. They're going to try to manipulate you. And when that doesn't work, they'll probably try to destroy you. I thought about that for a moment. Let them try. That evening, I drove past Mum's house on my way home from work. The lights were on in every room, the driveway full of cars. Vada was throwing another impromptu party. Through the large front windows, I could see people laughing, drinking, having the kind of carefree fun that money could buy. My money. I sat in my car across the street, watching them celebrate with funds I'd never authorised, in a house I'd been paying for without knowing it. The trust documents were in my passenger seat, Francis's business card clipped to the front page. Tomorrow, everything would change. In 30 days, the party would be over. I started my car and drove home, already planning my next move. The certified mail was delivered on a Thursday morning. I know because I was tracking it obsessively, refreshing the postal service website every hour like some kind of digital stalker. Penelope signed for hers at 10:47 a.m. Varda's was delivered to her apartment at 11:23 a.m. My phone started ringing at 11:31 a.m. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. And again. By noon, I had 14 missed calls and my phone was buzzing non-stop with text messages. I turned off the sound and went to lunch, leaving my phone in my desk drawer like a ticking bomb. When I came back an hour later, the notification count had hit 47. The first voicemail was Mom, her voice shaky. "Roslyn, honey, I think there's been some kind of mistake with the trust paperwork. Can you call me? It's urgent." The second was Varda, shrieking, "What the fuck is this letter? Call me back, right now." By the fifth message, Mum's tone had shifted. "Roslyn, this isn't funny anymore. I don't know what game you're playing, but you need to fix this immediately." The 10th message was Varda again. "You vindictive bitch! How could you do this to your own family?" I screenshot every text message, saved every voicemail. Ellie had been right about documentation. The family group chat was a war zone. I scrolled through message after message of increasingly unhinged accusations. "Mum, I can't believe you would betray us like this." Varda, "This is literally abuse." Mum, "Your father would be ashamed." Varda, "You're destroying this family over what? Some stupid school program?" Mum, "We need that money. Roslyn, the mortgage, the car payments, everything depends on it." Varda, "I have bills. I have a life. You can't just cut me off like I'm nothing." Mum, "If you don't fix this, I'm calling Francis myself." Varda, "Actually, fuck that, I'm calling a lawyer." I typed one response. "The trust terms are clearly outlined in the letters. You have 30 days to comply with the self-sufficiency requirements." The chat exploded. Varda, "Self-sufficiency? Are you insane?" Mom, "Roslyn Elizabeth Morgan, you get on the phone with me right now." Varda, "I'm not getting some minimum wage job because you're having a power trip." Mom, "This is not how we raised you." Varda, "You're literally ruining my life." I muted the chat and went back to work. At 3 p.m, my office phone rang. The receptionist's voice was apologetic. "Roslyn, your mother is here. She says it's a family emergency." "Tell her I'm in meetings all afternoon." "She says she'll wait." "Tell her I'm in meetings all week." 20 minutes later, my cell phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello?" "Don't you dare hang up on me." Mum's voice was ice-cold fury. "I'm sitting in your lobby and I'm not leaving until you explain yourself." "There's nothing to explain. The trust has terms. You need to follow them." "Terms?" "Roslyn, I'm your mother. Varda is your sister. We're not some strangers you can just cut off like we mean nothing to you." "You mean plenty to me. That's why I'm giving you 30 days instead of cutting you off immediately." 30 days to what? Get jobs? Roslyn, I'm 52 years old. I haven't worked in 20 years. And Varda is 24 and perfectly capable of working. She has anxiety. You know she has anxiety. Then she can get treatment. The trust will cover medical expenses. This is insane. You're being completely unreasonable. I'm being exactly as reasonable as Dad's trust documents require me to be." There was a long pause. When Mum spoke again, her voice had changed, taking on that particular wounded tone she used when she wanted to make me feel guilty. "Honey, I know you're upset about the school thing. I know we handled that badly, but this isn't the way to handle it. This is cruel. The way you handled Cambridge was cruel. We were just trying to protect you from making a mistake. You were protecting your meal ticket. How can you say that? After everything we've been through together, after I raised you, sacrificed for you." "Sacrificed what, exactly? You haven't worked since I was 12. You haven't paid a bill in 6 years. What exactly have you sacrificed?" "I sacrificed my career to raise you girls. And now it's time to unsacrifice it." The line went quiet, except for Mum's breathing. "If you don't reverse this," she said finally, "I'm going to fight you. I'm going to contest the trust, challenge your authority. I'll drag this through court if I have to." "Good luck with that. Francis already confirmed everything is ironclad. Francis works for the family, not just for you. Actually, Francis works for the trustee, which is me." Another long silence. "You've changed," Mum said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You've become someone I don't recognise. Maybe you never knew me to begin with." She hung up. I sat in my office chair, hands shaking slightly from adrenaline. Through my window, I could see the parking lot where Mum's BMW was still parked. She was probably calling Varda, strategizing their next move. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Emerson. We need to talk. What you're doing is illegal and we're going to stop you." I screenshot the message and forwarded it to Francis with a note. "It's starting." His reply came back within minutes. "Document everything. Don't engage directly. Let them make their moves first." At 5 p.m, I packed up my things and headed for the elevator. Mum was still in the lobby, sitting in one of the uncomfortable chairs near the reception desk. She looked smaller somehow, older. For just a moment, I felt a flicker of the old guilt. Then I remembered Cambridge. I remembered 6 years of ramen dinners and second-hand clothes while she got weekly manicures. I walked past her without stopping. "Roslyn," she called out, but I was already through the revolving door. In the parking lot, I could see her BMW was blocked in by a tow truck. Apparently, she'd been parked in a no-parking zone for hours. I got in my car and drove home, leaving her to figure out her own problems for once. My phone was buzzing again, but I didn't check it. Whatever they were planning, whatever threats they were making, I was ready. The war had officially begun. The smear campaign started on Facebook. I was having my morning coffee when Ellie called, her voice tight with anger. "Have you seen what they're posting about you?" "I don't really use Facebook anymore." "Well, you need to see this. I'm sending screenshots." My phone buzzed with a series of images. Varda had posted a long dramatic status update. "I never thought I'd have to ask for help like this, but my sister has completely cut off all financial support to our family with zero warning. My mum and I are facing eviction and can't afford basic necessities. We're looking at losing everything because of one person's selfishness. If anyone knows of job opportunities or can offer any assistance, please reach out. I never imagined family could be this cruel. Chaque family, betrayal, cherche-toi and need help." The post had 37 comments and counting. I scrolled through them, my stomach churning. "OMG, Vada, I'm so sorry. Your sister sounds like a monster. Family should always come first. Praying for you, babe. Can't believe someone would do this to their own mother. Disgusting." But then I saw other comments that made me pause. "Wait, didn't you just post pictures from that expensive restaurant last week?" Vada, you're 24, maybe it's time to get a job? Your sister has been supporting you for years. Maybe there's more to this story. It gets worse, Ellie said. Check your work email. I opened my laptop. There was a message from HR asking me to call them at my earliest convenience. My blood ran cold. Roslyn, thanks for calling back so quickly. Janet from HR sounded uncomfortable. We received some concerning calls yesterday about your personal situation affecting your work performance. What kind of calls? Someone claiming to be your mother called to say you were having a mental health crisis and might be making poor decisions. She was worried about your judgment. She called my work. She also mentioned something about you mismanaging family finances. Look, I know this is personal, but if there are legal issues that might impact your position here. There are no legal issues. My family is upset that I'm no longer financially supporting their lifestyle. That's all. Okay. Well, just keep us informed if anything develops that we need to know about. After I hung up, I immediately called Francis. They're trying to sabotage my job, I told him. Document it, save the HR conversation details, screenshot the social media posts. This kind of behaviour actually strengthens your position. How? It demonstrates exactly why the self-sufficiency clause exists. Adults who resort to manipulation and sabotage when asked to support themselves aren't exactly proving their maturity. That afternoon, my cousin Nicole called. We hadn't spoken in months. Ros, I just saw Vada's Facebook post. What the hell is going on? Did she tell you the whole story? She said you cut off their money out of nowhere because you're mad about some school program. That's not exactly accurate. I explained the trust situation, the years of support, the Cambridge scholarship I'd turned down. Nicole listened without interrupting. Jesus Christ, she said finally. They've been getting $6,500 a month. Plus, I've been covering the mortgage, car payments, insurance, everything else. While you live in that tiny apartment and drive a car that's older than Vada. Pretty much. And they made you turn down Cambridge. They said it was selfish. Nicole was quiet for a long moment. Ross, I need to tell you something. Vada called me yesterday asking if I could lend her money. She said you'd gone crazy and were trying to control them. What did you tell her? I told her I'd think about it. But now, fuck that. She's been living off you for years and has the audacity to call you controlling. She's telling everyone I'm having a mental breakdown. Let me guess, Mum's idea? Probably. I'm going to make some calls. Aunt Sarah, Uncle Mike, the whole family. They need to know the real story. That evening, Emerson showed up at my apartment. I watched him through the peephole, pacing in the hallway like a caged animal. When I didn't answer, he started pounding on the door. Roslyn, I know you're in there. We need to talk. I called building security instead of opening the door. Ma'am, we've asked the gentleman to leave, but he says it's a family emergency, the security guard told me over the phone. It's not an emergency. He's harassing me on behalf of my sister. We'll escort him out. Through the peephole, I watched security walk Emerson to the elevator. He was gesturing wildly, clearly agitated. My phone buzzed with a text from him. You can't hide forever. We're going to fight this, and we're going to win. I forwarded it to Francis. The next morning brought a new development. Nicole called again, this time with news. I talked to Aunt Sarah last night. Apparently, Mum called her too, asking for a loan. Said you'd stolen the family money. What did Sarah say? She asked some pointed questions about why two grown women needed loans when they'd been receiving trust payments for years. Mum got defensive and hung up. Good. There's more. I did some digging into the trust documents. Dad left copies with Uncle Mike when he was sick, just in case. Mike pulled them out and read through everything. And? Ros, there's a clause in there about financial irresponsibility. If beneficiaries accumulate excessive debt or make poor financial decisions, the trustee can permanently revoke their access. My heart started racing. What kind of debt? I don't know specifics, but Mike said he's heard rumours about Mum's credit cards, and Vada's been borrowing money from friends for months. How much debt are we talking about? Enough that they're panicking about losing the monthly payments. Mike thinks they're in deeper trouble than they're letting on. After Nicole hung up, I sat staring at my laptop screen. If they were already in debt despite receiving almost $80,000 a year, what would happen when that money disappeared entirely? My phone rang. Francis. Roslyn, we need to meet. I've received some interesting information about your family's financial situation. What kind of information? The kind that suggests your decision to implement the self-sufficiency clause was even more necessary than we thought. How bad is it? Bad enough that they're probably going to get desperate. And desperate people do stupid things. I looked out my apartment window at the parking lot below. A familiar BMW was parked across the street, engine running. Francis, I think they're already getting desperate. Then we need to be ready for whatever comes next. The BMW's door opened and Vada stepped out, phone pressed to her ear. Even from 4 floors up, I could see her gesturing angrily. Whatever they were planning, it was about to escalate. Francis spread the financial documents across his desk like evidence at a crime scene. Credit card statements, loan applications, bank records, all bearing my mother's and sister's names. How did you get these? I asked. Your mother submitted them as part of her petition to have you removed as trustee. She's claiming financial hardship, but these documents tell a different story. I picked up one of Vada's credit card statements. The balance was $23,147. Jesus, that's just one card. She has 4 maxed out. Your mother has 6 plus a personal loan she took out last month. How much total? Combined, nearly $200,000 in debt. The room spun slightly. 200,000? How is that even possible? Luxury purchases, cash advances, living beyond their means for years. They've been using credit to supplement the trust payments. I flipped through more statements. Designer handbags, expensive dinners, spa treatments, shopping sprees, all charged while I ate ramen and wore second-hand clothes. They've been living like millionaires while I've been living like a college student. It gets worse. Your mother took out a second mortgage on the house last year. She's 3 months behind on payments. She's going to lose the house. Without the trust payments? Absolutely. The foreclosure process has already started. My phone buzzed. A text from Vada. I got a job interview at Target. Are you happy now? I showed Francis the message. He raised an eyebrow. First job interview of her life, I'm guessing? Probably. 2 hours later, Vada called me sobbing. They didn't hire me. The manager was so rude, asking all these questions about my work history and availability. I told him I needed flexible hours because I have a social life, and he just stared at me like I was crazy. Vada, this is all your fault. I've never had to do this before. I don't know how to interview or fill out applications or any of this stuff. That's exactly why you need to learn. I can't do this, Roz. I'm not built for regular jobs. I have anxiety. I have depression. I need my freedom. Then get treatment. Use the medical coverage from the trust. I don't want treatment. I want my life back. She hung up. That evening, Nicole called with an update. I just got off the phone with Aunt Sarah. Mum called her again, this time asking for $50,000. $50,000? Said it was a temporary loan until you came to your senses. Sarah asked what she needed that much money for, and Mum broke down crying about losing the house. What did Sarah say? She said if Mum was getting almost $4,000 a month from the trust, she should have been saving money, not spending it all. Mum got defensive, and started ranting about how the family doesn't understand what she's been through since Dad died. The family doesn't understand. Sarah pointed out that you lost your father too, but somehow managed to support everyone while working full-time. Mum hung up on her. The next morning brought a new crisis. My building's concierge called at 6 a.m. "Ms. Morgan, your mother is in the lobby. She says she's been here all night." I threw on clothes and went downstairs. Mum was curled up in one of the lobby chairs, still wearing yesterday's clothes. Her hair was dishevelled, her makeup smeared. She looked like she hadn't slept. "Mum, what are you doing here?" She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. "I didn't have anywhere else to go." "What do you mean?" "The electricity got shut off. I couldn't pay the bill." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I've been sitting in my car, but it's so cold and I thought maybe if I came here..." Despite everything, seeing her like this made my chest tight. "Mum, I know you're angry with me. I know I handle things badly, but please, Roslyn, I'm your mother. I need help. The trust will cover utilities if you're actively looking for work." "I am. I filled out 3 applications yesterday. Online applications for retail jobs." She said it like she was admitting to a crime. "That's good. That's a start. But they want references, and I don't have any. I haven't worked in 20 years. Who's going to hire a 52-year-old woman with no recent experience?" "Lots of places hire mature workers. You just have to keep trying." She started crying again. "This isn't who I'm supposed to be. I'm not supposed to be begging for minimum wage jobs and sleeping in my car." "Mum, you can stay in a hotel. The trust covers reasonable living expenses during the transition period." "What transition period? You're destroying our lives." "I'm giving you a chance to build real lives. Lives that don't depend on me working myself to death." She stood up abruptly. "You know what? Fine. If you want to watch your family fall apart, go ahead. But don't expect me to thank you for it." She stormed toward the exit, then turned back. "There's something you don't know, Roslyn. Something about your precious father and his perfect trust fund. If you don't restore our payments, I'm going to tell everyone the truth about where that money really came from." My blood went cold. "What truth?" "Ask Francis about the insurance settlement. Ask him about the money your father never reported to the IRS. Ask him how much of that trust fund is built on lies." She left me standing in the lobby, mind racing. I called Francis immediately. "We need to meet. Now." "What's wrong?" "Mum's threatening to expose some kind of scandal about Dad and the trust money." There was a long pause. "I'll clear my schedule. Come in immediately." As I drove to Francis's office, my hands were shaking. Everything I'd built my revenge on, the legal authority, the moral high ground, the righteous anger. What if it was all based on something corrupt? What if Mum was right to threaten me? What if I'd just handed her the weapon she needed to destroy everything? Francis was waiting for me with a bottle of whiskey and 2 glasses on his desk. That was never a good sign. "Sit down, Roslyn. Just tell me, how bad is it?" He poured 2 fingers of whiskey into each glass and slid one toward me. "Your mother is referring to something that happened 15 years ago. Your father received a life insurance payout when his business partner died unexpectedly." "Okay." "The partner had been embezzling from their company. When he died, the insurance company paid out based on the business valuation, but they didn't know about the missing funds. Your father received money for assets that didn't actually exist." My stomach dropped. "So Dad stole insurance money?" "No. Your father reported the discrepancy to the insurance company as soon as he discovered it. He returned every penny and cooperated fully with their investigation." I stared at him. "Then, what's Mum threatening me with?" "During the investigation, there was a brief period, maybe 6 weeks, where your father had access to money that wasn't rightfully his. Your mother apparently believes this makes the entire trust illegitimate, but he returned it. Every cent, plus interest. I have all the documentation. Francis opened a file cabinet and pulled out a thick folder. Your father was scrupulously honest about the whole thing. The insurance company even wrote a letter commending his integrity. I took a sip of whiskey, feeling the burn in my throat. So, Mum's threat is bullshit. Completely. But she's desperate. And desperate people often believe their own lies. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Check Facebook. I opened the app with shaking hands. Varda had posted again, this time with a photo of Mum looking dishevelled in what appeared to be a hotel lobby. Update on our family situation. My mother spent last night sleeping in her car because my sister has cut off all support with zero notice. This is what family values looks like according to Rosalind Morgan. Our father would be ashamed of what she's become. Family abuse, elder abuse. The post already had dozens of comments, but this time the responses were different. Varda, your sister supported you for 6 years. Maybe it's time to grow up. Why can't you get a job like everyone else? Your mum looks fine to me. Stop being so dramatic. I know Rosalind from work. She's one of the most responsible people I've ever met. There's definitely more to this story. But then, I saw a comment that made my blood freeze. I heard the family money came from insurance fraud. Maybe that's why she's so desperate to control it. Francis, look at this. He read over my shoulder, his jaw tightening. She's actually going public with her accusations. Can she do that? Legally? She can say whatever she wants, but if she's making false statements about fraud, that's defamation. We can sue her. My phone rang. Nicole. Ros, I just saw the Facebook post. What insurance fraud is she talking about? I explained what Francis had told me. Nicole listened, then sighed heavily. This is getting out of hand. The whole family is talking about it now. Uncle Mike called me this morning asking if you'd really stolen money. What did you tell him? I told him that sounded like bullshit, but he wants to see proof. Everyone's taking sides. What sides? Team Penelope and Varda versus Team Rosalind. It's like a civil war. After Nicole hung up, Francis pulled out more documents. I think it's time to go on the offensive, he said. Your mother's accusations are false and damaging. We can file for defamation and harassment. I don't want to sue my own mother. Then what do you want to do? Let her destroy your reputation with lies. Before I could answer, my phone rang again. This time it was my boss. Rosalind, I need you to come in. We've received some serious allegations about your conduct. What kind of allegations? Someone called claiming you've been embezzling from a family trust. They said there might be criminal charges pending. My hands went numb. That's completely false. I'm sure it is, but we need to discuss this in person. Can you come in now? I hung up and looked at Francis. They called my work again, this time claiming I'm embezzling. That's it. Francis stood up, his face grim. We're filing a restraining order today. Francis, no. This has crossed every line. They're trying to destroy your career with false accusations. That's not family drama anymore. That's criminal harassment. 2 hours later, I was sitting in my boss's office with HR present, explaining the entire situation. I'd brought copies of all the trust documents, Francis's contact information, and a timeline of the harassment. So, you're saying these accusations are completely fabricated? My boss asked. Completely. I can provide legal documentation proving everything I've told you. And this is your mother and sister making these calls? Yes. They're upset that I'm no longer financially supporting them. HR took notes while I talked. When I finished, my boss leaned back in his chair. Roslyn, you've been with us for 6 years. Your work has always been exemplary, but this situation is concerning. I understand. I'm taking legal action to stop the harassment. Good. Keep us informed. And, Roslyn, document everything. If this escalates further, we'll need a complete record. That evening, I met Ellie at a bar near my apartment. She took one look at my face and ordered us both doubles. They called your work again? Claiming I'm embezzling. My boss was understanding, but I can see the doubt in his eyes. This is insane. They're trying to destroy your life because you won't fund their shopping addiction. Francis wants to file a restraining order. Do it. This has gone way beyond normal family drama. My phone buzzed with a voicemail notification. The number was blocked. I put it on speaker. Varda's voice slurred with alcohol. You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you can just cut us off and walk away? Well, guess what, sister? I found something. Something that's going to bring your whole perfect little plan crashing down. You have no idea what's coming. Ellie and I stared at each other. What could she have found? Ellie asked. I don't know, but knowing Varda, it's probably nothing. She's just trying to scare me. But even as I said it, a chill ran down my spine. Varda might be dramatic and entitled, but she wasn't stupid, and desperate people were capable of anything. My phone buzzed with a text from Francis. Restraining order filed. Court date set for Monday. Stay vigilant. I looked around the bar, suddenly feeling exposed. Somewhere out there, my mother and sister were plotting their next move, and I had no idea what they were capable of. The call came at 3 a.m. on a Saturday. Francis's voice was tight with controlled anger. Roslyn, I need you to get to my office immediately. We have a serious problem. What happened? Someone attempted to access the trust accounts overnight. They had forged authorization documents with your signature. I was already reaching for my clothes. How much did they get? Nothing. The bank's fraud detection system flagged it, but Roslyn, this is a felony. We're talking about attempted grand theft. It was Varda. Can you prove that? Who else would it be? That's not enough for the police. Get here now. We need to call the bank and file a report before they try again. I threw on jeans and a sweater, my hands shaking as I grabbed my keys. The streets were empty at this hour, just me and the occasional taxi cutting through the darkness toward Francis's office. He was waiting in the lobby, still in pajamas under his overcoat. We rode the elevator in silence. Show me everything, I said as soon as we reached his office. Francis spread out printed emails and bank documents. They submitted a request to transfer $40,000 to an account registered under V. Morgan. The signature looked convincing at first glance. I studied the forged signature. It was close, but not perfect. She practiced this. The bank manager called me directly because the request came in outside normal business hours and the amount was unusually large. Smart woman. She probably saved us from a much bigger theft. What happens now? We file a police report. The bank will investigate. If they determine it was intentional fraud, Varda could go to jail. Yes. My phone started buzzing. Text messages flooding in. Varda? I know you're awake. Varda? I know you called the bank. Varda? You want to play hardball? Let's play hardball. Varda? I have copies of everything. Varda? Dad's real will. The one he wrote before he got sick. Varda? Guess who he really wanted to control the money? I showed Francis the messages. His face went pale. There is no other will, right? I asked. Your father's will was very straightforward. There were no previous versions, no amendments. Francis, Let me check something. He went to his file cabinet, pulling out folder after folder. Your father did mention... No, that's impossible. What? He mentioned drafting something years earlier, but he said he destroyed it when your mother's spending got out of control. What did it say? It would have made your mother the primary trustee with you as backup. My stomach dropped. If Vada has a copy of that... She could challenge your authority. But Roslyn, even if such a document existed, it would have been superseded by the final will. Legally, it's meaningless. But it would give her grounds to contest everything. Potentially. But first, she'd have to prove it's authentic, which would be difficult if your father destroyed the original. My phone rang. Block number. Don't answer it, Francis said, but I was already swiping to accept. Hello, sister. Vada's voice was cold, controlled, different from her usual dramatics. Vada, you need to turn yourself in. The bank has evidence of attempted fraud. Fraud? I was accessing money that should have been mine all along. That's not how the law works. Maybe not, but I wonder how the law feels about trustees who hide important documents from beneficiaries. What are you talking about? Dad's real will, Roslyn. The one where he left Mom in charge of everything. The one you and Francis have been hiding for 6 years. Francis was shaking his head frantically, but I could hear the confidence in Vada's voice. There is no other will. Really? Then explain this. My phone buzzed with a photo message, a document that looked like Dad's handwriting, dated 2 years before his death. Francis grabbed my phone, studying the image. His face went white. This is impossible, he whispered. What? This looks like your father's handwriting, but I never saw this document. Could it be real? I don't know, but if it is... Vada's voice came through the speaker. Still there, sis. I thought you might want to discuss terms. What terms? Full restoration of our monthly payments, retroactive compensation for the months you cut us off, and a formal apology for your illegal seizure of family assets. And if I refuse? Then I file this will with the probate court on Monday morning, along with a complaint about your fraudulent management of the trust. Francis took the phone from me. Vada, this is Francis Brewer. If you have a document you believe is relevant to the trust, you need to submit it through proper legal channels. Oh, I will. But I thought I'd give my dear sister a chance to do the right thing first. Where did you get this document? Mom found it in Dad's old desk. Funny how it just turned up, right? The line went dead. Francis and I stared at each other. Could she have forged it? I asked. It's possible, but if it's real, I've been illegally controlling money that should have gone to Mom. Not illegally. You were acting on the authority of the final will, but it would complicate things significantly. I slumped in my chair. They've been planning this. The attempted bank fraud was probably a distraction, something to make me panic while they prepared their real attack. We need a handwriting expert, and we need to examine the original document, not just a photo. What if it's real, Francis? What if Dad really did want Mom to control the money? Then we deal with it. But Roslyn, even if this document is authentic, it doesn't change the fact that your mother and sister have been financially irresponsible. Any court would see that. My phone buzzed with another message from Vada. You have 24 hours to restore our payments. After that, this gets very public and very ugly. I looked at Francis. What do? We prepare for war, because that's what this is now. Outside the office windows, dawn was breaking over the city. Somewhere out there, my mother and sister were probably celebrating, thinking they'd found the perfect weapon to destroy me. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated how far I was willing to go to protect what was mine. The handwriting expert's report arrived Tuesday morning. Francis called me before I'd even finished my first cup of coffee. "It's a forgery," he said without preamble. "A very good one, but a forgery nonetheless. The paper is wrong. It's from a batch manufactured 3 years after your father's death." So Varda faked the whole thing? Worse, she hired someone to do it. This wasn't some amateur job with tracing paper. This was professional document fraud. I sat down heavily. That's a federal crime. Multiple federal crimes. Fraud, forgery, attempted extortion. The FBI is going to want to talk to her. The FBI? Bank fraud crosses state lines when it involves wire transfers. This is out of local jurisdiction now. My phone started ringing. Mum's number. "Don't answer," Francis said. "Let them make the next move. We have everything we need." But I was already swiping to accept. "Hello, Mum." "Rosalind, thank God. We need to talk. There's been a terrible misunderstanding." "What kind of misunderstanding?" "About that document Varda found. I think she might have made a mistake." "What kind of mistake?" "She was so upset, so desperate to fix things between us. I think she might have embellished some details." Francis was recording the call on his phone, nodding at me to keep her talking. "Embellished how?" "The will she showed you. I don't think your father actually wrote that." "Are you saying Varda forged it?" Long pause. "I'm saying she was trying to help our family, and maybe she went too far." "Mum, do you understand what you're telling me? Document forgery is a federal crime. Which is why we need to fix this quietly. Family to family. No lawyers, no police, no courts. It's too late for that." "What do you mean?" "The FBI is already involved. The bank fraud triggered a federal investigation." I could hear Mom's sharp intake of breath. "FBI? Varda tried to steal $40,000 using forged documents. Then she tried to extort me with a fake will. This isn't family drama anymore, Mum. This is serious criminal activity." "She's just a child, Rosalind. She doesn't understand. She's 24 years old. She hired a professional forger. She knew exactly what she was doing. Please, I'm begging you, don't let them arrest her. She's my baby." She made her choice. "What do you want? I'll do anything. We'll get jobs. We'll pay back every penny." "It's not about the money anymore." "Then what?" I looked at Francis, who nodded encouragingly. "It's about consequences, Mum. For the first time in your lives, there are actual consequences for your actions." "Rosalind, I'm done." I hung up. Francis smiled grimly. "That was perfect. She just admitted on a recorded call that Varda forged the document. What happens now?" "Now we wait. The FBI will want to interview you, but you're the victim here. Varda, on the other hand." My phone buzzed with a text from Nicole. "Turn on Channel 7 News. Now." I grabbed the remote and flipped to the local news. A reporter was standing outside the courthouse. 24-year-old Varda Morgan was arrested this morning on federal charges of bank fraud and document forgery. The charges stem from an alleged attempt to steal money from a family trust. The screen showed Varda in handcuffs, being led into the courthouse. She looked smaller somehow, younger. For a moment, I felt a flicker of the old sympathy. Then I remembered Cambridge. I remembered 6 years of sacrifice. I remembered sleeping in my car while they lived in luxury. The sympathy died. Francis muted the TV. "The prosecutor wants to meet with you tomorrow. They're offering Varda a plea deal, full restitution, community service, probation, but she has to admit guilt and stay away from you." "And if she doesn't take it?" "Federal prison. Probably 2 to 5 years. My phone rang again. This time it was Ellie. Holy shit, Roz. I just saw the news. Are you okay? I'm fine. How do you feel? I thought about that for a moment. How did I feel? Not triumphant exactly, not vindicated, just empty. Like I'd been holding my breath for years and could finally exhale. Free, I said finally. I feel free. Good. You deserve to feel free. That afternoon, I drove to Cambridge's admissions office. The programme director, Dr. Williams, looked surprised to see me. Ms. Morgan, I thought you'd declined our offer. I'd like to know if there's any possibility of deferring my acceptance. I know it's late, but circumstances have changed. She studied me for a long moment. What kind of circumstances? Family obligations that are no longer obligatory. Dr. Williams smiled. Let me make some calls. 2 hours later, I walked out with a new acceptance letter. The programme would hold my spot for the spring semester. I had 4 months to get my affairs in order and move to England. 4 months to build a life that was actually mine. That evening, I sat in my apartment with a glass of wine and my laptop, finally allowing myself to browse apartments in Cambridge. Real apartments, not cramped studios. Places with enough space for books and a proper desk and maybe even a cat. My phone buzzed with an email from an address I didn't recognise. This isn't over. You destroyed our family and you'll pay for it. We know where you work, where you live, where you're going. This isn't over. I forwarded it to Francis and the FBI agent handling Varda's case. Then, I blocked the address and poured myself another glass of wine. Let them rage, let them threaten, let them plot their revenge from whatever hole they'd crawled into. I was done being afraid of my own family. I was done sacrificing my dreams for their comfort. I was done. Outside my window, the city lights twinkled like stars. Somewhere out there was a life I'd never allowed myself to imagine. A life where I came first, where my choices mattered, where I didn't have to apologise for wanting more. I raised my glass to the window, to the future, to the woman I was finally becoming. Cheers, I said to my reflection. Here's to consequences. The anonymous email could wait. The threats could wait. The guilt and the doubt and the lingering sadness could all wait. Right now, I had a new life to plan. And for the first time in years, that life belonged entirely to me.
To the happy couple who always did play in the mud. The champagne flutes clinked around me as my sister Tamara's voice carried across the reception hall, dripping with that special brand of sweetness that could cut glass. The laughter that followed hit me like a slap, and I felt my cheeks burn as 200 wedding guests turned to look at me and Peyton. My name is Bethany, and that was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. I should have known Tamara wouldn't let my wedding pass without reminding everyone exactly where I stood in the family hierarchy. There she was, radiant in her designer bridesmaid dress, holding court at the head table, while I sat there in my grandmother's altered wedding gown, trying not to let the tears show. "Bethany, honey, smile," my mother Rosalie hissed from beside me, her perfectly manicured fingers digging into my arm. People are watching. Of course they were watching. They'd been watching my whole life, waiting to see which Blair sister would stumble first. Spoiler alert, it was always going to be me. Peyton's calloused hand found mine under the table, his thumb tracing gentle circles on my palm. When I looked at him, his brown eyes were steady and kind, completely unbothered by the snickers echoing around us. "Let them laugh," he murmured, leaning close enough that his breath tickled my ear. "We know what we have." God, I loved this man, even covered in a thin layer of dust from the fields he'd been working that morning, because yes, he'd insisted on checking the irrigation system on our wedding day. He was more real than anyone in this room, full of pressed suits and fake smiles. I still can't believe you're marrying a farmer, my youngest sister Erin whispered, sliding into the empty chair beside me. At 27, she was the diplomatic one, always trying to smooth over the family's rough edges. I mean, I think it's romantic, but Mum's been popping antacids all week. Thanks for the pep talk, I said, watching Tamara work the crowd like she was running for office. At 31, she had perfected the art of being the golden child, Stanford MBA, corner office in Manhattan, husband who wore $1,000 suits and talked about market volatility at dinner parties. That's not what I meant, Erin said quickly. Ladies and gentlemen, my father Donald's voice boomed through the microphone, cutting through the chatter. He stood at the podium, his silver hair perfectly styled, his expression somewhere between resigned and disappointed. I'd like to say a few words about my daughter Bethany. My stomach dropped. This couldn't be good. Bethany has always been unique, he began, and I caught Tamara smirking behind her champagne glass. While her sisters focused on their careers and achievements, Bethany chose a different path, a simpler path. The word simpler hung in the air like a judgment. I felt Peyton's grip tighten on my hand. She's chosen to marry Peyton, a man who works with his hands and understands the value of hard work. Donald's pause felt deliberate, calculated. We wished them happiness in their humble life together. The applause was polite but lukewarm. I caught my mother dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, though I wasn't sure if they were tears of joy or mourning. Your dad's really laying it on thick, Peyton said quietly, his voice steady, despite the insult wrapped in wedding wishes. He's been practicing that speech for weeks, I replied, watching Tamara lean over to whisper something to her husband Elijah. They both laughed, and I didn't need to hear the words to know they were about me. This was my family. The people who should have been celebrating with me were instead treating my wedding like a funeral for my potential. Every achievement I'd ever earned, my college degree, my teaching awards, the small business I'd built selling organic produce, all of it dismissed because I'd chosen love over status. You know what? I said, standing up so abruptly that my chair scraped against the floor. The sound cut through the reception chatter, and suddenly everyone was looking at me again. I raised my water glass, because of course I was too practical to waste good champagne on a toast, and looked directly at my sister. To family, I said, my voice carrying across the suddenly quiet room. And to learning who really has your back when it matters. Tamara's smile faltered for just a moment, but she recovered quickly, raising her glass with the rest of the room. The toast felt like a line drawn in the sand, though I don't think anyone else realized it yet. As I sat back down, Peyton leaned over and whispered, "That's my girl." I had no idea how prophetic those words would turn out to be. 3 years later, I stood in Tamara's marble-tiled foyer, holding a casserole dish that probably cost less than her doormat. The annual Blair family barbecue was in full swing, and I could already hear the familiar soundtrack of my childhood, clinking glasses, forced laughter, and the subtle art of one-upmanship disguised as conversation. "Bethany!" my mother's voice rang out as I stepped onto the pristine back patio. "There you are. We were just talking about the Hamptons house Tamara and Elijah bought." Of course they were. Tamara glided over in a flowing white sundress that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Her smile was as perfectly maintained as her landscaping. "Oh, you brought food," she said, eyeing my casserole dish like it might contain something contagious. "How thoughtful." "Green bean casserole," I said, setting it down on the catering table next to the professionally prepared spread. "From our garden." "Is it organic?" Elijah appeared beside his wife, martini in hand, his polo shirt so crisp it could cut paper. "Or just basic?" The question hung in the air while several family friends turned to listen. I felt that familiar heat creeping up my neck. "It's homegrown," Peyton said quietly, stepping up beside me. His jeans were clean but worn, his button-down shirt simple cotton. Next to Elijah's designer everything, he looked like he'd wandered in from a different world. Right, Elijah nodded with exaggerated interest. The farming thing. How's that going? Still playing in the dirt? We're doing well, I said, forcing my voice to stay level. The farm's been profitable for 2 years running. Tamara laughed, the sound like wind chimes in a hurricane. Profitable? Oh, honey, that's adorable. Elijah just closed a deal worth more than your little farm probably makes in a decade. Actually, my father interjected, walking over with his bourbon, I've been meaning to ask about that. This farming venture of yours, when are you planning to do something more substantial with your lives? Donald, my mother warned, but her tone suggested she wanted to hear the answer too. We're happy, Peyton said simply. The work is good. Honest work. Honest work, Elijah repeated, swirling his martini. That's one way to put it, though I have to say, watching you two at family events is like watching a nature documentary. Here we see the simple farm folk in their natural habitat. The group around us chuckled. I saw Erin wince from across the patio, but she didn't say anything. At least we sleep well at night, I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. The laughter died. Elijah's smile tightened. What's that supposed to mean? Tamara asked, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. Nothing, I said quickly. Just that physical work makes you tired. But the damage was done. I'd crossed some invisible line and everyone could feel it. Well, my mother said with forced brightness, who wants to see the new pool house? The group dispersed, following Tamara toward the latest addition to her property empire. I started to follow, but Peyton caught my arm. I'm going to check on the truck, he said. Make sure we didn't leave the windows down. I knew he just needed air. These gatherings were harder on him than he let on, watching his wife get picked apart by her own family while he stood there powerless to stop it. I'll come with you, I said, but he shook his head. Stay. Enjoy your family. The word enjoy carried weight we both understood. I found myself alone by the pool, watching the sun reflect off water that probably cost more to maintain than we spent on groceries. The sound of laughter drifted from the pool house tour, and I wondered what it would feel like to belong in that group instead of always standing on the outside looking in. They're being awful today, Erin said, appearing beside me with 2 glasses of wine. Today? I took the glass gratefully. This is just Tuesday for them. It's not always like this, isn't it? I turned to look at her. When was the last time anyone in this family asked about my life without it being a setup for a joke? Erin was quiet for a moment. Things have been tense lately, with Elijah's work, I mean. Tamara's been stressed. Stressed about what? I probably shouldn't say anything. Erin. She glanced around, then leaned closer. Some of his investments haven't been going well, big ones. Tamara's been making comments about having to adjust their lifestyle. Before I could respond, Tamara's voice cut across the patio like a blade. Bethany, come settle a debate for us. I walked back to the group, wineglass in hand, already bracing myself. We were just discussing career trajectories, Tamara said, her smile predatory. And I was telling everyone how you've really found your calling. I mean, not everyone can handle the intellectual demands of, what do you call it, subsistence farming? The group laughed right on cue. Though I have to ask, she continued, stepping closer, don't you ever wonder what you could have accomplished if you'd applied yourself? I mean, really applied yourself instead of settling for this quaint little life? The words hit like physical blows. Every insecurity I'd ever had about my choices, every moment of doubt, all wrapped up in my sister's perfectly manicured cruelty. I opened my mouth to respond, but Tamara wasn't finished. I'm just saying, some of us dream bigger than vegetable gardens and county fairs. Real life happens on Wall Street, not in whatever little bubble you've created for yourself. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the people who'd been laughing looked uncomfortable now. I set down my wineglass with a steady hand. You're right, I said quietly. Real life does happen, and sometimes it happens in ways you never expect. 6 months after the barbecue from hell, I noticed the cracks starting to show. It started with missed phone calls. My parents, who used to check in weekly with updates about Tamara's latest achievements, suddenly went radio silent. When I did catch them, the conversations felt strained, like they were reading from a script with half the pages missing. "How's Tamara doing?" I asked during one particularly awkward call with my mother. "Oh, you know Tamara, always busy, always working on something big." The pause that followed stretched long enough to drive a truck through. "And Elijah?" He's fine. Listen, honey, I have to run. Your father's calling me." Click. I stared at the phone, frowning. In 30 years, my mother had never cut a conversation short, unless someone was literally bleeding. The next red flag came at Erin's birthday dinner. We met at a small Italian place downtown. Nothing fancy, which should have been my first clue. The Blair family didn't do nothing fancy. "Where's everyone else?" I asked as Erin slid into the booth across from me and Peyton. "Mum and Dad had something come up. Tamara and Elijah are dealing with work stuff." "Work stuff on a Saturday night?" Erin picked at her breadstick, avoiding my eyes. "Things have been complicated lately." "What kind of complicated?" "I probably shouldn't." "Erin," I leaned forward, "what's going on?" She glanced around the restaurant like she was checking for spies, then lowered her voice. "Elijah's company is in trouble, big trouble, some kind of investment scheme that went sideways." I felt a little flutter in my chest, not quite satisfaction, but something close to it. I pushed the feeling down, ashamed of myself. "How bad?" "Bad enough that they had to put the Hamptons house on the market, and the boat, and Tamara's been calling around asking family members for short-term loans." The flutter got stronger. I took a sip of water to hide my expression. "Have they asked you for money?" Peyton asked quietly. "Not yet, but I think that's only because I don't have any to give." Erin finally met my eyes. "They haven't called you, have they?" "No," I said. "But then again, we're just simple farm folk. What would we know about real money?" Erin winced. "You heard about that?" "I was there, remember? Front row seat to the Tamara show." "She's been different lately, stressed, snapping at everyone. Even the golden child has bad days, I guess." We ate in relative silence after that, but I could feel Peyton watching me. He knew me well enough to recognise the wheels turning in my head. Later that week, we were harvesting the late summer tomatoes when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello?" "Bethany." The voice was shaky, older than I remembered. "It's your mother." "Mum, are you okay? You sound—" "I'm fine, sweetheart, just tired. Listen, I was wondering, could you come by the house this weekend? There's something we need to discuss, as a family." The word sent a chill down my spine. In Blair family speak, something we need to discuss as a family was never good news. "What kind of something?" "It's better if we talk in person. Can you come Saturday afternoon, around 2? I looked at Peyton, who was pretending not to eavesdrop while loading tomatoes into crates. His shoulders were tense. "I guess so. Should I bring anything?" "Just yourself, and Peyton, of course." The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone. "Family meeting?" Peyton asked without looking up. "Sounds like it." He straightened, wiping his hands on his jeans. "About what?" She wouldn't say, but given what Erin told us. "They're going to ask us for money." It wasn't a question. We both knew it was true. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while Peyton's breathing evened out beside me. Part of me, a bigger part than I wanted to admit, was almost excited. After years of being treated like the family disappointment, they were finally going to need something from me. The irony was delicious. All those comments about our simple little life and playing in the dirt, and now they were going to come hat in hand to the farm girl they'd spent decades mocking. But another part of me, the part that still remembered being 7 years old and desperately wanting Tamara to include me in her games, felt sick at the thought of my family's pain. Saturday morning arrived grey and drizzly, matching my mood. Peyton was unusually quiet as we drove to my parents' house, his hands steady on the wheel but his jaw tight. "Whatever they ask," he said as we pulled into the familiar driveway, "remember that you don't owe them anything." "I know. Do you?" Because you have a soft heart, Beth, and they know how to use that against you. I looked at the house where I'd grown up, with its perfect lawn and pristine shutters. It looked smaller than I remembered, less imposing. I'll be fine. But as we walked up the front steps, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Emergency family meeting. Please come. We need you. It was from Tamara. The same sister who'd spent years telling me I'd never amount to anything was asking for my help. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and rang the doorbell, my heart hammering against my ribs. Time to see what real life looked like when it came knocking on the farm girl's door. The living room felt like a courtroom when we walked in. Everyone was already there, arranged in a careful semicircle like they'd been planning this ambush for weeks. My parents sat on the couch, looking older than I remembered. Tamara perched on the edge of the armchair, her designer clothes wrinkled, her usual perfect composure cracked around the edges. Elijah stood by the window, his back to us, hands shoved deep in his pockets. Only Erin looked genuinely uncomfortable, shooting me an apologetic glance from her spot on the ottoman. Bethany, Peyton, my father said, gesturing to the 2 chairs they'd clearly positioned for us. Thank you for coming. We sat down, and I immediately felt like I was on trial. So, I said, breaking the heavy silence, what's this about? My mother twisted her wedding ring, a nervous habit I remembered from childhood. We wanted to talk to you about the family situation. What situation? Elijah finally turned around, and I was shocked by how haggard he looked. The cocky confidence was gone, replaced by something desperate and angry. Cut the act, Bethany, he snapped. You know exactly what situation. Elijah, Tamara warned, but her voice lacked its usual authority. No, I'm done pretending, he continued. Your sister told you about our problems, didn't she? About the investments? I glanced at Erin, who was studying her hands like they held the secrets of the universe. She mentioned you were having some difficulties. Difficulties? Elijah let out a bitter laugh. That's one way to put it. What Elijah means, my father interjected, is that the family is facing some financial challenges, significant ones. How significant? The question hung in the air like smoke. Finally, my mother spoke. We could lose everything. The words hit the room like a physical blow, even though I'd suspected hearing it confirmed was different. Everything? Peyton asked quietly. The house, the savings, the retirement accounts, my father said, his voice flat. Elijah made some investments on our behalf, investments that didn't pan out. I looked at Elijah, who was glaring at me like this was somehow my fault. I'm sorry to hear that, I said carefully, but I'm not sure why you're telling us. Because we need your help, Tamara said, leaning forward. For the first time in my life, my sister was looking at me with something that might have been desperation. Our help? Your land, my father said bluntly. The farm. We need you to sell it. The words hit me like a slap. Excuse me. It's the only asset in the family that's not tied up in the mess, my mother explained, her voice pleading. If you sell the farm, we can pay off the debts and start over. I felt Peyton's hand find mine, his grip steady and warm. You want us to sell our home, I said slowly, to fix your mistakes. It's not about mistakes, Elijah said, his voice rising. It's about family, about doing what's right. What's right? The words came out sharper than I intended. What's right is asking your family to sacrifice everything they've worked for. You've worked for? Tamara stood up, her composure finally cracking completely. Bethany, you're playing house on a patch of dirt. This is real life, real consequences. Real consequences for choices you made. We're family, my mother cried, tears streaming down her face. Family helps family. Where was this family loyalty when you spent years mocking everything we built? I stood up too, my hands shaking. Where was it when you treated Peyton like dirt under your shoes? That's not fair, my father said, but his voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? You want to talk about fair? Let's talk about every family gathering where you made us feel like charity cases. Every comment about our simple little life. Every time you acted like we were embarrassing you just by existing. Bethany, Erin started, but I was on a roll now. And now, when your golden boy's schemes fall apart, suddenly you remember we exist? Suddenly we're family. This isn't about the past, Tamara said, her voice desperate. This is about now, about survival. Your survival, built on our sacrifice. It's just land, Elijah exploded. It's dirt and weeds and nothing. You could buy another farm anywhere. The silence that followed was deafening. Even he seemed to realize he'd gone too far. Peyton stood up slowly, his movements deliberate and controlled. I think, he said quietly, we should go. Wait, my mother pleaded. Please, just think about it. We're not asking you to decide right now. Actually, my father said, his voice hard. We are. The creditors won't wait much longer. We need an answer by Monday. Monday? I stared at him. You're giving us 2 days to decide whether to destroy our lives for you. You're being dramatic, Tamara said, but her voice was shaking. It's just property. We're talking about people's lives here, my daughter's future. What about our future? You don't have children, she shot back. You don't understand what's at stake. The words hit like a physical blow, the unspoken implication that our childless marriage somehow made our lives worth less, hung in the air between us. Peyton's jaw tightened, and I saw his hands clench into fists. We're leaving, I said, grabbing my purse. Bethany, please, my mother called as we headed for the door. Just think about it, please. I turned back one last time, looking at these people who shared my blood but felt like strangers. I'll think about it, I said. But you should think about something too. You should think about what kind of people ask their family to lose everything to save them from their own mistakes. As we walked to the truck, my father's voice followed us out. You'll come to your senses once you realise what you owe us, Bethany, what we've done for you over the years. Peyton's hand was on the truck door, but he paused, his knuckles white against the metal. What we owe them, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. After 30 years of being treated like the family disappointment, what exactly do we owe them? No one had an answer for that. At least, not one they were willing to say out loud. The drive home was silent, except for the sound of gravel crunching under our tyres. Peyton's knuckles were still white on the steering wheel, and I could practically feel the anger radiating off him in waves. We pulled into our driveway, and I stared at our modest farmhouse, the place my family wanted us to sacrifice like it meant nothing. The evening light made the fields look golden, peaceful. Everything I'd ever wanted was right here. I need to show you something, Peyton said as we got out of the truck. Peyton, I'm not selling. I don't care what they... I know you're not selling. That's not what this is about. He headed toward the barn, his stride purposeful. There are things I should have told you years ago. I followed him, confused. What things? Instead of answering, he led me to the back of the barn where he kept his office. I'd been in there 1,000 times, but he went straight to a filing cabinet I'd never seen him open. Sit down, he said, pulling out a thick manila folder. Peyton, you're scaring me. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to show you who we really are. He opened the folder and spread papers across his desk. What we really are. I leaned forward, squinting at the documents. Legal papers, patents, financial statements with numbers that made my head spin. What is all this? This, he said, pointing to a patent document, is the irrigation system we use on the North Field, the one I cobbled together from spare parts. I read the header, patent granted to Peyton Stone for Advanced Precision Agriculture Irrigation System. You patented it. 3 years ago. It's being used on farms across the Midwest now. He pulled out another document. This is the soil analysis software I've been working on, the program that helps us know exactly when and where to plant. Another patent, another document with Peyton's name at the top. I don't understand. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted to be sure. I wanted to build something real before I started talking about it. He sat down across from me, his expression serious. Beth, our patch of dirt isn't just a farm. It's a research and development facility. Everything we grow here, every system we test, it's all part of something bigger. My head was spinning. How much bigger? He pulled out a financial statement and slid it across the desk. The numbers at the bottom made me blink hard, certain I was misreading them. Are we worth? The company is worth that. Stone Agricultural Technologies. I started it 5 years ago, right after we got married. Used our land as the testing ground for everything. I stared at the papers, then at my husband. You've been running a tech company this whole time? A very quiet tech company. Most of our clients don't even know where the innovations come from. They just know the systems work. But why keep it secret? Why let my family think we're just farmers? Peyton was quiet for a moment, organising the papers into neat piles. Because I wanted to see who they really were, he said finally. I wanted to see how they'd treat us when they thought we had nothing to offer. The words hit me like a physical blow. You knew, all this time you knew how they saw us, and you just let it happen? I let them show their true colours, yes. While I suffered through every family gathering, thinking we really were the poor relations. Beth, do you have any idea how that felt? Sitting there while they mocked everything we'd built, thinking maybe they were right. Maybe I had thrown my life away. Peyton reached for my hand, but I pulled back. You let me doubt myself. You let me think we were struggling while you were sitting on all this. We were never struggling. Our bills were always paid. We never wanted for anything. That's not the point. I stood up, pacing to the window. The point is, you let me feel small. You let them make me feel small. I never wanted that. But you allowed it. The silence stretched between us, heavy with years of unspoken truths. There's more, he said quietly. I turned back to him. More what? Elijah's company, the investments that failed? Peyton pulled out another folder. He bet against us, against Stone Agricultural Technologies. The words didn't make sense at first. What do you mean? He shorted our stock, put his clients' money, including your parents' retirement fund, on a bet that our company would fail. I sank back into the chair, the full picture finally coming into focus. He lost their money betting against us? Every penny. He was so convinced that anything connected to simple farmers had to be worthless that he staked everything on our failure. My phone buzzed on the desk. Text message from Erin. They're coming to the farm tomorrow, all of them. Dad says they won't take no for an answer. I showed Peyton the message. He read it, then looked up at me with something that might have been anticipation. Good, Ka, he said. Let them come. Good? Peyton, they're going to demand we sell everything. They're going to learn the truth. He stood up, gathering the papers back into their folders. All of it. What are you planning? I'm planning to give them exactly what they've been asking for all these years. His smile was sharp, unfamiliar. A real education about who we are and what we're worth. And then what? Then we see if they're really family, or if they're just people who share your DNA. I looked at my husband, really looked at him, and realised I was seeing a side of him I'd never known existed. The quiet farmer was still there, but underneath was something harder, more calculating. You've been planning this for a long time, haven't you? I've been preparing for it. There's a difference. Is there? He met my eyes, and for the first time since I'd known him, Peyton looked dangerous. I guess we'll find out tomorrow. They arrived like a storm front. 3 cars pulling into our driveway at exactly 2 o'clock, kicking up dust clouds that settled on their expensive paint jobs. I watched from the kitchen window as they climbed out, my parents looking grim, Tamara clutching a leather portfolio, Elijah adjusting his tie like he was heading into a boardroom instead of a farmhouse. Even little Tiffany was there, Tamara's 8-year-old daughter looking confused and out of place in her pristine white dress. Show time, Peyton said quietly, straightening his simple button-down shirt. He'd insisted on dressing exactly like he always did, jeans, work boots, the same clothes that had earned him years of condescending looks. The knock on our door was sharp, authoritative. My father's knock. I opened it to find them arranged like a delegation, my parents flanking Tamara and Elijah, with Erin hovering uncertainly in the back, holding Tiffany's hand. "We need to talk," my father said without preamble. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. They filed into our living room, and I watched them take in the simple furniture, the handmade quilts, the family photos on the mantel. The same room they'd been in dozens of times, but now they were seeing it differently, calculating its worth, measuring its sacrifice potential. "Please sit," Peyton said, gesturing to the couch and chairs. "We'd rather stand," Elijah said, his voice tight with barely controlled desperation. "This won't take long." "Actually," my father said, pulling out a folder, "we brought the paperwork to make this easier." He set it on our coffee table, like he was serving a legal summons. "Sale documents for the property. We've already had it appraised, found a buyer. All you need to do is sign." I stared at the papers, then at my family. "You had our land appraised, without asking us?" "We're trying to be efficient," my mother said, her voice strained. "Time is a factor here." "Whose time?" Peyton asked mildly. "Don't play games," Elijah snapped. "You know exactly what's at stake. Your parents could lose their house. Tamara and I could lose everything. Tiffany could lose her college fund, her future." "Daddy, what's happening?" Tiffany asked, tugging on her father's sleeve. "Nothing, sweetheart," Tamara said quickly. "The adults are just talking." "About what?" "About family," my mother said, her eyes fixed on me. "About how family takes care of each other." I felt the familiar guilt starting to creep in, the same feeling that had controlled me my entire life. But then I looked at Peyton, who was watching the scene with an expression I couldn't quite read. "You're right," he said suddenly. "Families should take care of each other." Relief flooded my mother's face. "Oh, thank goodness! I knew you'd understand." "Which is why," Peyton continued, walking to his desk in the corner, "I think it's time we had an honest conversation about family." He pulled out a thick manila folder, the same one from last night, and returned to the living room. "What's that?" Tamara asked, eyeing the folder suspiciously. "Information," Peyton said, settling into his chair. "About who we really are. About what this patch of dirt actually represents." "We don't have time for games," my father said impatiently. "We need a decision." "You'll get one," Peyton said. "But first let me ask you something, Elijah. In your professional opinion, what would you say this farm is worth?" Elijah glanced around dismissively. "Maybe 200,000, 300 if you're lucky. It's decent land, but it's not exactly prime real estate." "Interesting assessment." Peyton opened the folder and pulled out a document. "What if I told you that this patch of dirt is actually the research and development headquarters for a company worth $50 million? The room went dead silent. "What?" Tamara said faintly. "Stone Agricultural Technologies," Peyton continued conversationally. "Maybe you've heard of it. Your husband certainly has." Elijah's face went white. "That's impossible." "Is it?" Peyton pulled out another document. "Patent number 10,847,392. Advanced Precision Agriculture Irrigation System. Inventor, Peyton Stone. Filed 3 years ago, currently licensed to farms across 12 states." He set the patent on the coffee table next to the sale documents. "Patent number 11, 203,147. Predictive Soil Analysis Software. Also mine. Licensed to agricultural companies nationwide." Another document joined the first. "Should I continue? Because I have about 30 more patents here, all developed right here on this worthless patch of dirt." My mother was staring at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. "I don't understand." "It's simple," Peyton said. "While you were all busy looking down on us, we were building something significant." "But you're just a farmer," my father said weakly. "I'm a farmer who happens to hold a PhD in agricultural engineering from MIT. I'm also the CEO of a company that revolutionizes how food is grown in this country." Tamara sank into the nearest chair. "This can't be real." "Oh, it's real." Peyton pulled out a financial statement. Want to see our quarterly earnings? The numbers on the page made Elijah physically recoil. But wait, Peyton said, his voice taking on a harder edge. There's more. Elijah, you mentioned being familiar with Stone Agricultural Technologies. I might have heard the name. You did more than hear it. You bet against it. You convinced your clients, including Bethany's parents, to short our stock. The silence was deafening. You lost their retirement money betting that we would fail, Peyton continued. You were so convinced that anything connected to simple farmers had to be worthless that you staked everything on our destruction. Elijah's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. The beautiful irony, Peyton said, standing up, is that you didn't just lose their money, you lost it to us. Every dollar you gambled against Stone Agricultural Technologies went straight into our pockets when our stock price doubled. Oh my God, Erin whispered. So when you ask us to sell our land to save you from your mistakes, Peyton continued, you're asking us to sacrifice our life's work to fix the damage you caused by betting against our life's work. The front door opened, and a man in an expensive suit walked in like he owned the place. Sorry I'm late, he said, setting a briefcase on the table. Traffic was murder. Everyone, Peyton said calmly, I'd like you to meet Leonard Wise, our attorney. Leonard smiled at the room full of stunned faces. I believe you have some questions for my client. Leonard opened his briefcase with the precision of a surgeon, pulling out documents and arranging them on our coffee table like he was setting up for surgery. The sale papers my father had brought suddenly looked pathetic next to the official legal documents spreading across the surface. Let's start with the basics, Leonard said, adjusting his glasses. The property in question is owned outright by Stone Agricultural Technologies, a corporation wholly owned by Peyton and Bethany Stone. No liens, no mortgages, no encumbrances of any kind. That's impossible, my father said. We helped them with the down payment, which was repaid in full with interest 18 months after the purchase. Leonard interrupted smoothly. I have the cancelled cheques right here. He slid a document across the table. My father stared at it like it might bite him. Furthermore, Leonard continued, any attempt to force a sale through legal channels would be inadvisable. The property is protected under several agricultural preservation statutes, and the ongoing research conducted here has federal grant protections. Federal grants? My mother whispered. Oh yes, Peyton said. The Department of Agriculture has been very interested in our work. We're currently developing drought-resistant crop systems that could revolutionize farming in climate-affected regions. Elijah finally found his voice. This is all very impressive, but it doesn't change the fact that we're family, that we need help. Family, I repeated, standing up. The word tasted bitter in my mouth. Let's talk about family, shall we? I walked to the mantel and picked up a framed photo from my college graduation. Remember this day? I graduated summa cum laude with a degree in environmental science. You know what you said to me, Dad? My father's face was stone. You said, too bad it's not a real degree like business or law. You said I'd wasted 4 years studying dirt and plants. I set the photo down and picked up another one, our wedding day. And this day, when I married the love of my life. You spent the entire reception apologising to people for my poor choice. You told Aunt Margaret that you hoped I'd come to my senses before it was too late. Bethany, my mother started. I'm not finished. My voice was steady, but my hands were shaking. Every family gathering for 5 years, every holiday, every birthday, every celebration. You made sure I knew exactly where I stood, the disappointment, the failure, the one who settled for less. Tamara was crying now, mascara streaking down her cheeks. We didn't mean... You meant every word. I turned to face her directly. You called our life a joke. You said real life happens on Wall Street, not in our little bubble. You mocked everything we built, everything we cared about. But we didn't know, she sobbed. We didn't know about the company, about the money. And that's exactly the point! The words exploded out of me. You didn't know, and you didn't care to know. You saw what you wanted to see. 2 people you could look down on to make yourselves feel better. Leonard cleared his throat. If I may, there's another matter we should address, the financial losses your family has suffered. He pulled out another document. Stone Agricultural Technologies has been tracking the short positions taken against our stock. We're required to report significant trades to the SEC. Elijah went even paler, if that was possible. The trades were made through Pinnacle Investment Group, where Mr. Elijah Olson serves as senior partner. The total exposure was approximately $2.3 million, representing the retirement accounts of 17 clients. "Ah, 17 families," Peyton said quietly. 17 families who trusted you with their life savings, and you gambled it all on a bet that we would fail. It was a sure thing, Elijah said desperately. Agricultural tech startups fail 90% of the time. The odds were that you'd do your homework before risking other people's money, Leonard interrupted. Did you visit the company? Did you research the patents? Did you look into the leadership team's background? Silence. You didn't, did you? You saw farming and assumed it was worthless, just like you assumed we were worthless. We can sue, my father said suddenly, for the losses, for damages. Leonard smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. Please do. I'd love to explain to a jury how your son-in-law lost your retirement money betting against your daughter's company. The optics alone would be fascinating. What do you want? Tamara asked, her voice broken. What do you want from us? I looked around the room at these people who shared my blood but had never really been my family. My parents, who'd spent 30 years making me feel small. My sister, who'd turned cruelty into an art form. Elijah, who'd gambled away their future on his own arrogance, and little Tiffany, sitting in the corner, watching her world fall apart. I want you to leave, I said simply. I want you to walk out that door and never come back. Bethany, please, my mother begged. We're sorry. We're so sorry. We made mistakes, but we're family. No, I said, and the word felt like freedom. Family doesn't treat each other the way you treated us. Family doesn't spend years tearing each other down. Family doesn't come crawling back only when they need something. But what about us? Tamara asked. What about Tiffany? What about her future? I looked at my niece, this innocent child caught in the wreckage of adult failures. Tiffany's future was never my responsibility. It was yours, and you gambled it away. You're really going to let us lose everything? My father asked. After everything we've done for you? Everything you've done for me? I laughed, and it sounded harsh even to my own ears. What exactly have you done for me, Dad, besides spend 30 years making me feel like I wasn't good enough? He had no answer. The meeting is over, Peyton said, standing up. Leonard, would you escort our guests out? Wait, Tamara said, desperation making her voice shrill. You'll regret this, Bethany. You'll regret turning your back on family. When you're old and alone, you'll remember this day and wish you'd made a different choice. I met her eyes, and for the first time in my life I wasn't afraid of my sister. You're right, I said. I will remember this day. I'll remember it as the day I finally stopped letting you define my worth. They filed out like mourners leaving a funeral, taking their demands and their entitlement with them. Through the window I watched them drive away, leaving nothing but dust clouds and silence. For the first time in 30 years, I was free. The silence after they left felt different than any quiet I'd ever experienced. Not empty, full, like the air itself had been holding its breath and could finally exhale. Leonard packed up his briefcase with the same methodical precision he'd used to unpack it. Well, he said, snapping the latches shut, that went about as expected. You've done this before? I asked. Not exactly like this, but I've seen enough family dynamics to know how these things play out. He straightened his tie. People show you who they are when they're desperate. Your family showed you. And now? Now you move forward, without them. After Leonard left, Peyton and I sat on our front porch, watching the sun set over our fields, the same fields my family had called worthless dirt just hours earlier. Do you think I was too harsh? I asked. Peyton was quiet for a long moment, his fingers tracing patterns on the porch railing. "Do you remember what Tamara said at our wedding about us playing in the mud?" Hard to forget. I knew that day that this moment would come eventually, maybe not exactly like this, but something like it. He turned to look at me. "They never saw us, Beth. They saw what they wanted to see, people they could feel superior to. But they're still my family." "Are they?" The question hung between us like morning mist. Before I could answer, my phone rang. Erin's name flashed on the screen. "I should probably—" "Take it," Peyton said. "She's different from the rest." I answered on the third ring. "Hello?" "Beth?" Erin's voice was thick with tears. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." "Erin, no, let me say this. I knew how they treated you, and I never stood up for you. I told myself I was staying neutral, but there is no neutral when someone you love is being hurt." I closed my eyes, feeling tears I hadn't expected. "You were caught in the middle. I was a coward, and now, God, Beth, the things they're saying about you. Dad's telling everyone you abandoned the family. Mum's acting like you personally destroyed their lives. And Tamara—" "What about Tamara?" "She's bitter, really bitter. She keeps saying you planned this whole thing, that you and Peyton set them up somehow." "We didn't set anyone up. We just stopped pretending to be less than we are. I know that. I know you, even if I didn't defend you like I should have." Erin's voice cracked. "Can you ever forgive me?" I looked out at our land, at the life Peyton and I had built together despite everything. "You're calling me now. That counts for something. I want to see you, not to ask for anything, just— I miss my sister, the real one, not the version they tried to make you into. Come for dinner Sunday, bring whoever you want, but leave the drama at home. Just me, I promise." After I hung up, Peyton reached over and took my hand. One down. "Think any of the others will come around?" "Does it matter?" I considered that. A week ago, the thought of losing my family would have terrified me. Now, sitting here with my husband on land we owned free and clear, surrounded by the success we'd built together, it felt more like shedding old skin. "No," I said finally, "it doesn't matter." The next morning I was in the garden when I heard a car in the driveway. My heart jumped, wondering if my parents had come back to try again, but when I looked up, I saw a woman I didn't recognize climbing out of a small sedan. She was maybe 40, wearing jeans and a simple blouse, carrying a manila folder. "Mrs. Stone," she called out, "I'm Sarah Martinez from the Department of Agriculture. I was hoping to speak with you and your husband about your drought resistance research." Peyton emerged from the barn, wiping his hands on a towel. "Sarah, you made good time." "The preliminary results you sent were incredible," she said, shaking his hand. "We'd like to fast-track the grant approval for the expanded trials." "Grant approval?" I asked. $2.7 million over 3 years, Sarah said, smiling. "Your husband's work could change how we approach farming in drought-affected regions. We're talking about feeding millions of people." I stared at Peyton. "You didn't mention—" "I wanted to be sure before I got your hopes up," he said. "But yes, we're about to get very busy." As Sarah and Peyton discussed research protocols and timelines, I found myself thinking about my family's visit. They'd come here demanding we sacrifice everything to save them from their mistakes, never realizing they were asking us to destroy something that could help feed the world. The irony was perfect. They'd spent years calling us small, insignificant, worthless. Meanwhile, we were quietly working on something that mattered more than any of their status symbols or investment portfolios. That evening, Peyton and I walked through our fields as the sun painted the sky orange and pink. The same walk we'd taken hundreds of times, but everything felt different now. "Any regrets?" he asked. I thought about my mother's tears, about Tamara's desperation, about little Tiffany caught in the middle of adult failures. I thought about the years of humiliation, the constant feeling of not being good enough, the way they'd made me doubt everything I'd chosen. "No," I said, and meant it. "No regrets." "Even about your family?" "They made their choice long before today. They chose to see us as less than we were. They chose to bet against us, literally and figuratively. I stopped walking and turned to face him. I choose us. I choose this life, this work, this future we're building. Peyton smiled, the same gentle smile that had made me fall in love with him in the first place. Good, because I have plans for us, big plans. Bigger than a $50 million company? Much bigger. He gestured toward the field stretching out around us. We're going to change the world, Beth, one seed at a time. As we walked back toward the house, I realized something had shifted inside me. The part of me that had always sought my family's approval, that had carried their disappointment like a weight, it was gone. In its place was something stronger, cleaner. I was exactly where I belonged, with exactly the right person, doing exactly the work I was meant to do. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. The water was ankle deep when I opened my apartment door that Tuesday night, and my first thought wasn't about the damage or the mess. It was about the emergency fund. My name is Sophia, and I've been the responsible one in my family for as long as I can remember. While my younger brother Carter was out partying through college and beyond, I was the one sending $500 every month to what my parents called our family emergency fund. 10 years of faithfully transferring money from my corporate salary, because that's what good daughters do, right? Jesus Christ, I whispered, stepping into the flooded hallway. The burst pipe above had turned my carefully organized life into a soggy disaster. My laptop bag went straight onto the kitchen counter, the one dry surface I could find, and I started taking pictures for insurance. The water damage was extensive. My hardwood floors were warped beyond repair, the drywall was soaked through, and my furniture looked like it had been through a hurricane. The smell of mould was already starting to creep in. I called my landlord first. "Sophia, I'm so sorry," Mrs. Patterson said, when she arrived an hour later. "The unit above you had a major pipe failure. We're looking at least 6 weeks for repairs, maybe 8. 6 weeks? My voice cracked. Where am I supposed to live? I'll work with you on temporary housing costs, but honestly, you'll need to find somewhere else to stay. This place isn't habitable." After she left, I sat on my kitchen counter, literally the only clean, dry spot in my apartment, and stared at the destruction. My carefully curated life, my organised space, everything I'd worked for was ruined. But that's what the emergency fund was for, right? 10 years of contributions. My parents had always praised me for being so responsible, so forward-thinking. "You're the glue that holds this family together," Mum would say whenever I sent another deposit. I grabbed my phone and called home. "Sophia, darling," Mum's voice was bright, but there was something underneath it that I couldn't quite place. "How are you, sweetheart?" "Mum, I need help. My apartment flooded tonight. The whole place is destroyed and I can't live here for at least 6 weeks. I need to access the emergency fund." Silence. "Mum?" "Well, honey, that's unfortunate about your apartment." Unfortunate? I looked around at my waterlogged life and felt something cold settle in my stomach. "I need to find temporary housing," I continued. "Hotels are expensive, and I'll need to replace some furniture and, Sophia dear, I'm not sure this qualifies as a real emergency." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Not a real emergency? Mum, I'm literally homeless right now." "You're being dramatic. You have friends, don't you? Can't you stay with someone? And honestly, sweetheart, you should have renter's insurance for situations like this." I did have renter's insurance, but it wouldn't cover temporary housing costs, and she knew that. We'd talked about it before. "I've been paying into that fund for 10 years, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "This is exactly what it's for." "Well, we'll need to discuss it as a family. Your father and I can't just make unilateral decisions about family money." Family money. Money that was 90% mine. "Let me talk to Dad." "He's not available right now. Look, Sophia, I'm sure you'll figure something out. You always do. You're so capable. Before I could respond, I heard Carter's voice in the background. Is that Sophia? Tell her I said hi. Carter says hello, Mum relayed, and I could hear the warmth in her voice that had been completely absent when she was talking to me. Mum, I have to go, dear. We'll talk soon. The line went dead. I sat there in my destroyed apartment, phone in hand, trying to process what had just happened. My mother, the woman who'd spent years telling me how proud she was of my responsibility, had just dismissed my actual emergency as not real. My phone buzzed with a text from Carter. Heard about your little flood situation. Maybe next time invest in better insurance instead of being so cheap. I stared at the message until the words blurred. There was something in his tone, something that suggested he knew more than he was letting on. I grabbed my overnight bag and started throwing clothes into it. Whatever was happening here, whatever game my family was playing, I needed space to think. But first, I needed to call Blair. Blair answered on the second ring. Sophia, it's almost midnight. What's wrong? My apartment flooded. Everything's ruined and I need somewhere to crash tonight. Oh my God, yes, of course. Come over right now. Do you need me to pick you up? No, I can drive. Blair, there's more. I called my parents about the emergency fund and... We'll talk when you get here. Just drive safe. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in Blair's kitchen while she made tea, my overnight bag dripping on her floor. Okay, start from the beginning, she said, setting a mug in front of me. I told her everything. The flood, the call with Mom, Carter's text. Blair's expression grew darker with each detail. She said it wasn't a real emergency. Blair's voice was sharp. You're literally homeless. That's what I said, but she acted like I was being dramatic. And your dad? Conveniently unavailable. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug. Blair, something's off. The way she talked to me, like she was annoyed I even called, and Carter's text. What exactly did he say? I showed her the message. Blair read it twice, her jaw tightening. He's such a little shit, she muttered. But Sophia, there's something I need to tell you. My stomach dropped. What? Blair sat down across from me, fidgeting with her tea bag. Last month at your cousin's wedding, I was in the bathroom when your mum came in with your Aunt Desiree. They were talking about money, and I heard your mum mention something about a fund for Carter. What kind of fund? I don't know exactly, but your mum said something like, he's going to be so surprised, and he's earned it. I thought maybe it was a separate thing, but now... The room felt like it was spinning. You think they're talking about my emergency fund? I don't know. Maybe I misheard. But the timing is weird, right? You have a real emergency and suddenly the fund isn't available. I pulled out my phone and called home again. This time, Dad answered. Sophia, it's very late. Dad, I need to talk to you about the emergency fund. My apartment is completely flooded. I can't live there for weeks. Yes, your mother mentioned that. I'm sorry about your situation. My situation? Dad, this is exactly what we created that fund for. I've been contributing to it for 10 years. Well, honey, these things are complicated. We can't just... What's complicated about it? I have an emergency. I need emergency money. I heard Mum's voice in the background. William, tell her we'll discuss it tomorrow. Your mother says we'll discuss it tomorrow. I need somewhere to live tonight, Dad, and tomorrow, and for the next 6 weeks. You're a smart girl, Sophia. You'll figure something out. The line went dead again. Unbelievable, I said, staring at my phone. He just hung up on me. Blair reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You can stay here as long as you need. But Sophia, I think you need to find out what's really going on with that fund. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Carter. Should I answer it? Put it on speaker, Blair said. Hey, sis. Carter's voice was cheerful, almost mocking. Heard you had a little water problem. A little water problem. Carter, my entire apartment is destroyed. Yeah, that sucks. But hey, maybe this is a good opportunity for you to finally move somewhere nicer. You've been in that dump for years. That dump was my home, and I can't afford somewhere nicer because I've been sending money to the family fund every month. Carter laughed. Oh, that old thing? Yeah, Mum and Dad have been talking about that lately. My blood went cold. What do you mean? Nothing specific, just family financial planning stuff. You know how they are. Carter, I need access to that fund. This is a real emergency. I'm sure Mum and Dad will work something out. They always do what's best for the family. There was something in his tone, smug, knowing, like he was enjoying this. What aren't you telling me? I asked. Nothing. God, you're so paranoid. Look, I gotta go. Good luck with your flood situation. He hung up. Blair and I stared at each other across the table. He knows something, I said. Yeah, he definitely knows something. The question is what? I thought about the wedding, about Mom and Desiree's conversation, about Carter's smirk when he talked about the fund. Blair, I need to see the paperwork for that account. I need to know exactly what's going on. How are you going to do that? I still have copies of everything at my office, all the deposit records, the original account set up. If something's changed, I'll be able to tell. Blair nodded slowly. And if you find out they're planning to give your money to Carter? I met her eyes. Then we'll figure out what to do about it. The next evening, I was at my parents' house for what Mum called a family dinner to discuss your situation. I'd spent the day at work pulling every document I had related to the emergency fund, and what I'd found made my hands shake. I was still listed as the primary account holder. Sophia, darling, you look tired, Mum said as she set down a casserole dish. Are you sleeping well at Blair's? I'm fine. I took my usual seat at the dinner table, the same spot I'd occupied for 28 years. Can we talk about the fund now? Let's eat first, Dad said, not making eye contact. Carter strolled in 15 minutes late, hair still damp from a shower. Sorry, lost track of time at the gym. No problem, sweetheart, Mum said, immediately fixing him a plate. I kept everything warm for you. I watched her fuss over him the same way she had our entire lives. Carter got the biggest portions, the best pieces, the warmest smiles. So, Carter said, settling into his chair, how's the homeless life treating you, sis? Carter, Dad warned, but his tone was mild. What? I'm just asking. It's been, 2 days now? I'm staying with Blair, I said evenly, but I need a more permanent solution, which is why we're here. Mum cleared her throat. Sophia, your father and I have been discussing your situation, and we think the best approach is for you to handle this independently. Independently? You're 28 years old, she continued. You have a good job savings. This is an opportunity for you to prove you can handle adult responsibilities without running to your parents. I set down my fork. I've been handling adult responsibilities since I was 18, including contributing to a family emergency fund for 10 years. Yes, and we appreciate that, Dad said. But the fund is meant for true emergencies. What would qualify as a true emergency? My voice was getting louder. What could possibly be more of an emergency than losing your home? Carter snorted. Come on, Sophia, you're being dramatic. It's just an apartment. Just an apartment? I turned to face him. Where exactly do you think I should live? I don't know. Figure it out. Get a hotel, find a sublet, ask one of your friends. Normal people don't go running to Mommy and Daddy every time something goes wrong. The hypocrisy was staggering. Carter had been living in our parents' basement on and off for 3 years, rent-free. Normal people also don't live in their parents' basement at 25, I shot back. That's different, Mum said quickly. Carter is saving money for his future. What future? He doesn't even have a job. I'm between opportunities, Carter said, and at least I'm not begging for handouts. Handouts? I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. I've put $50,000 into that fund. 50,000. That's not a handout, that's my money. It's family money, Mum corrected, and we need to be thoughtful about how it's used. Thoughtful? I'm homeless. You're staying with a friend, Dad said. That's hardly homeless. I looked around the table at their faces, Mum's tight-lipped disapproval, Dad's uncomfortable avoidance, Carter's smirk. These people were strangers. I need some air, I said, and walked out to the back porch. Through the sliding glass door, I could hear them talking in low voices. I pressed myself against the wall and listened. She's being completely unreasonable, Mum was saying, acting like we owe her something. Well, she has been contributing to the fund, Dad said weakly. We all have, Mum snapped. This is exactly why we need to make the transfer soon, before she gets any more demanding. Transfer? Dad's voice was confused. William, we discussed this. Carter's been so patient, and he's finally ready to take that next step. The car will give him the independence he needs to find a real job. My blood turned to ice. I still think we should tell Sophia, Dad said. Tell her what? That we're finally doing something nice for her brother? She'll just find a way to make it about herself, like she always does. But it's mostly her money in there, Dad protested. It's family money, Mum repeated firmly. And Carter is family too. He deserves this chance. Carter's voice joined the conversation. Besides, Sophia makes good money. She can handle her own problems. I actually need this. Exactly, Mum said. Sophia has always been so capable. She'll figure out her housing situation, but Carter needs our support right now. When are we doing it? Carter asked. Next week. I already talked to the bank about the transfer process. It'll be a nice surprise for you, sweetheart. I stood there on the porch, my entire world crashing down around me. 10 years of sacrifice. 10 years of being the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who could handle anything. And they were going to give it all to Carter for a car. I walked back inside, grabbed my purse, and headed for the door. Sophia, where are you going? Mum called. We haven't finished discussing your situation. There's nothing to discuss, I said, without turning around. You've made your decision. What's that supposed to mean? I looked back at her, this woman who'd raised me, who'd told me she was proud of my responsibility, who'd just spent the last 10 minutes planning to give away my life savings to my unemployed brother. It means I heard everything. The colour drained from her face. Sophia, wait! But I was already out the door. I drove straight to Blair's apartment, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. She took one look at my face and pulled me inside. What happened? They're giving it all to Carter. For a car. The words tumbled out as I collapsed onto her couch. I heard them planning it. Next week, a surprise for their precious golden boy. Blair sat down beside me. Are you sure that's what you heard? Mum said Carter deserves this chance, that I'm capable and can handle my own problems. $50,000, Blair, for a fucking car. Jesus Christ. Blair got up and started pacing. So while you're sleeping on my couch because your apartment is destroyed, they're planning to give your money to Carter so he can drive around in style. Pretty much. My phone started ringing. Mum. Don't answer it, Blair said. It went to voicemail, then immediately started ringing again. She's persistent, I muttered, declining the call. A text came through. Sophia, we need to talk. You misunderstood what you heard. Then another. Please come back. We can work this out. And another. You're being childish. Childish? I read aloud. I'm being childish. Blair grabbed the phone from my hands. Stop reading them. You'll just get more upset. I need to see the account documents again. I stood up and headed for my bag. There has to be something I can do. I spread the papers across Blair's dining table, 10 years of deposit slips, account statements, the original paperwork from when I'd set up the fund. Look at this, I said, pointing to the signature page. I'm listed as the primary account holder. My parents are secondary. Blair leaned over my shoulder. What does that mean exactly? It means I have full access to the account. I set it up this way because I was contributing the most money and I wanted to be able to track the deposits. So you can withdraw money without their permission? Technically, yes. But Blair, I can't just steal from my own family. Steal! Blair's voice was sharp. Sophia, it's your money. You put in $50,000. How much did they contribute? I flipped through the statements. Dad put in maybe $3,000 over the years. Mum contributed nothing directly. She always said her contribution was managing the household. So 94% of that money is yours. But it's supposed to be for family emergencies. And you have a family emergency. You're homeless. But instead of helping you, they're planning to buy Carter a car. Blair sat down across from me. Sophia, when was the last time your parents actually supported you? I thought about it. I don't know. College maybe. But even then, Carter got more help with his tuition. And when Carter needed money for his failed business venture 2 years ago, they gave him $5,000 from their personal savings. When he crashed his car last year, they paid for the repairs and his insurance deductible. When he wanted to take that expensive photography course, they covered it. I was starting to see her point. And when you needed help with your security deposit for your apartment, I handled it myself. When you had that medical emergency and couldn't work for a month, I used my own savings. Blair leaned back in her chair. Do you see the pattern here? My phone buzzed with another text from Mom. Your father wants to talk to you. Then Dad. Sophia, please call me. Let's discuss this rationally. Then Carter. Way to eavesdrop and cause drama. Real mature. He's calling me immature, I said, showing Blair the message. The 25-year-old who lives in his parents' basement is calling you immature. Another text from Carter. Hope you're happy. Mum's crying because of your tantrum. A tantrum, I repeated. Discovering that my family is planning to steal my money is a tantrum. Blair grabbed my phone and typed back, maybe she should cry. She should be ashamed. Blair, don't. But she'd already hit send. Carter's response was immediate. Who is this? Blair typed. Someone who actually cares about Sophia. Give me my phone back, I said, but I wasn't really trying to stop her. Tell your parents they're disgusting, Blair typed. Sophia has been supporting this family for years while you've been playing video games in the basement. Blair? What? It's true, she handed me back the phone. Sophia, you need to stop protecting these people. They're not protecting you. My phone started ringing. Mum again. This time, I answered. Sophia, who was that texting Carter? What you're doing is completely inappropriate. What I'm doing? Mum, you're planning to give away my money without telling me. It's not your money, it's family money, and we weren't giving it away, we were making a family decision. A family decision that I wasn't included in. Because we knew you'd react exactly like this. You always make everything about yourself. I looked at Blair, who was making slashing motions across her throat. I'm hanging up now, I said. Sophia, don't you dare. I ended the call and turned off my phone. Good, Blair said. Now, what are you going to do about the money? I stared at the account documents spread across the table. $50,000. 10 years of sacrifice, and they were going to give it all away to buy Carter a car while I slept on couches. I'm going to the bank tomorrow, I said quietly. To do what? I met her eyes. To withdraw my money. I barely slept that night. By 8 a.m. I was dressed and ready, the account documents in a folder under my arm. You sure about this? Blair asked, handing me a cup of coffee. They were going to do it next week anyway. At least this way, the money goes to an actual emergency. And you're really going to take all of it? I paused at her door. I put in 50,000. They put in maybe 3. I'm taking what's mine. The bank was a 10-minute drive from Blair's apartment. I'd been there dozens of times over the years, making deposits, checking balances. The teller, Maria, recognized me immediately. "Sophia, how are you? Here to make another deposit to the family fund." "Actually, I need to make a withdrawal today, a large one." Maria's smile faltered slightly. "Oh, okay. How much are we talking about?" "All of it." "All of it?" She pulled up the account on her screen. That's $53,000. "I know. Can I ask what this is for? We usually recommend keeping emergency funds intact unless—" "It's for an emergency," I said firmly. "My apartment flooded. I need temporary housing and money for repairs." Maria nodded slowly. "I'll need to see some ID and verify your signature. Since you're the primary account holder, you have full withdrawal rights, but with an amount this large, I need to follow protocol." My hands were shaking as I handed over my driver's license. Maria compared it to the signature card, then had me sign a withdrawal slip. "Would you like this as a cashier's check or transferred to your personal account?" "Transfer to my personal account, please." "This will take a few minutes to process. Can I get you some water while you wait?" I sat in the uncomfortable chair by Maria's desk, watching her type and click through screens. Other customers came and went. A woman deposited her paycheck. A man opened a new savings account. Normal banking business while I dismantled my family's financial future. "Okay," Maria said finally, "the transfer is complete. Your personal account now shows a balance of $53,412. "Thank you. Sophia, can I ask you something? Off the record?" I looked up at her. "Sure. In all the years you've been coming here, you've been the only one making deposits to that account. Your parents have never once come in to add money. Are you sure they're okay with this withdrawal?" I thought about Carter's smirk, about Mum's voice saying, "He deserves this chance," about Dad's weak protests that were immediately shut down. "They'll be fine," I said. Back in my car, I sat for a moment staring at my phone. 17 missed calls from Mum, 12 from Dad, 8 from Carter, 23 unread text messages. I drove to an office supply store and bought a small notebook and a pack of pens. Then I went to a coffee shop and spent 2 hours creating a detailed ledger of every deposit I'd made over the past 10 years. Date, amount, source, everything meticulously documented. At the bottom I wrote, "Total contributed by Sophia, $50,147. Total contributed by parents, $2,565. Percentage of fund belonging to Sophia, 95.2%. Then I wrote a note on a separate piece of paper, "For emergencies only sake." I drove back to the bank and asked Maria if I could access the safe deposit box associated with the account. "Of course, you're listed as an authorized user." Inside the small metal box were the original account documents and a few savings bonds my grandmother had left us years ago. I placed my ledger and note inside, then locked it back up. "All set?" Maria asked. "All set." My phone started ringing as I walked to my car. "Mum, Sophia, where are you? We need to talk immediately." "I'm running errands. What's up?" "Don't play dumb with me. The bank called. They said there was unusual activity on the family account." "Unusual how?" "Sophia Marie, don't you dare lie to me. Did you withdraw money from that account?" I got in my car and started the engine. "I had an emergency, remember? You said I should handle it myself." "How much did you take?" "I took what I needed." "How much, Sophia?" "All of it." The silence on the other end was deafening. "You took all of it?" Her voice was barely a whisper. $53,000, which, according to my calculations, was about 50,000 more than you contributed. You can't do this. That money belongs to the family." No, Mom, that money belonged to me. I earned it, I saved it, I deposited it, and now I'm using it for exactly what it was intended for, an emergency. This is theft, Sophia. I'm calling the police. Go ahead. I'm the primary account holder. I have every legal right to that money. Your father and I will never forgive you for this. That's fine. I'll never forgive you for planning to give my money to Carter for a car while I was homeless. We weren't. I heard you, Mum. I heard every word. I hung up and immediately called Blair. It's done, I said when she answered. How do you feel? I sat in the bank parking lot, watching normal people go about their normal lives, and tried to identify the emotion churning in my stomach. Terrified, I said finally, and free. Within an hour, my phone was exploding. I'd turned it back on to call Blair, and the notifications were relentless. Dad, Sophia, please call me. We need to fix this. Carter, what the fuck is wrong with you? Mum, you've destroyed this family. Carter again, I hope you're happy. You ruined everything. Then a call from a number I didn't recognize. Hello? Sophia, it's your Aunt Desiree. Your mother called me crying. What's going on? I pulled over to the side of the road. Did she tell you about the emergency fund? She said you stole money from the family account. Did she tell you they were planning to give it all to Carter for a car? Silence. Desiree? She mentioned something about helping Carter get back on his feet. While I'm homeless because my apartment flooded. They told me it wasn't a real emergency. Oh, honey, Desiree's voice softened. I had no idea about your apartment. Of course you didn't, because they don't care about my problems, only Carter's wants. Sophia, I think there's been a misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding. I heard them planning it. Mum said Carter deserved the money and I could handle my own problems because I'm so capable. Another long pause. I'm sorry, Desiree said quietly. That's not right. After I hung up, I drove to an extended stay hotel and booked a room for 2 weeks. It wasn't cheap, but I could afford it now. I was unpacking my few belongings when Blair called. How are you holding up? I'm in a hotel room that costs more per night than my old rent, but at least I have a roof over my head. Any word from your family? They're calling me a thief. Carter sent me about 15 texts, calling me every name in the book. What did he say exactly? I scrolled through the messages. Let's see. Selfish bitch, family destroyer, psycho, and my personal favourite, I hope you die alone. Jesus, screenshot those. Why? Just do it. Trust me. I was taking screenshots when another call came in. Dad. Sophia, please. Your mother is beside herself. Good. Maybe now she knows how I felt when she dismissed my emergency. That's not what happened. We were trying to be fair to everyone. Fair? Dad, I contributed $50,000 to that fund. $50,000. And when I needed it, you said it wasn't a real emergency. We didn't say that. Yes, you did. Mum's exact words were, I'm not sure this qualifies as a real emergency. Then I heard her planning to give it all to Carter for a car. It wasn't all for a car. It was to help him get established, find a job. He's 25 years old. When I was 25, I was supporting myself and contributing to your precious family fund. Sophia, you have to understand, Carter needs more help than you do. Because you've never made him help himself. You've enabled him his entire life, and now you want to reward him with my money. It's not your money, it's family money. Bullshit, Dad. I have the receipts. Literally, I documented every single deposit I made over 10 years. You can't just take money that doesn't belong to you. It does belong to me. I'm the primary account holder. I put in 95% of that money, and I took it for an actual emergency, not to buy your golden boy a shiny new toy. Sophia! I hung up. 20 minutes later, Carter was at my hotel room door, pounding on it. Open up, Sophia, we need to talk. I looked through the peephole. His face was red, his hair dishevelled. Go away, Carter. Open the fucking door. No, you're clearly upset and I don't feel safe. Safe? I'm your brother. My brother, who just sent me texts saying he hopes I die alone. I was angry. You stole my money. Your money? I laughed. Carter, you've never contributed a single dollar to that fund. It was meant for me. Mum and Dad promised. There it was. The truth. They promised you my money. It's family money. How much of your own money did you put in that account, Carter? Silence. How much? That's not the point. It's exactly the point. I put in $50,000 of my own money and you put in zero, but somehow it's yours. Mum and Dad said a lot of things. They also said it was for emergencies, but when I had an emergency, suddenly it wasn't available. Your apartment flooding isn't the same as what? As you wanting a new car? You're right, it's not the same. One is an actual emergency and the other is a spoiled brat wanting a toy. Fuck you, Sophia. No, fuck you, Carter, and fuck Mum and Dad for choosing you over me for the 1,000th time. I heard him kick the door, then stomp away. My phone buzzed with a text from Blair. Check Carter's Instagram. I opened the app and went to his profile. His most recent post from 3 days ago was a picture of a red sports car with the caption, Soon, deem blessed be family, love, she new whip. He'd already been bragging about the car he was going to buy with my money. I screenshotted that too. 3 days later, there was a knock on my hotel room door at 7 a.m. I looked through the peephole and saw both my parents standing in the hallway looking haggard. Sophia, we know you're in there, Mum called. We need to talk. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. What do you want? We want to resolve this, Dad said. As a family. There's nothing to resolve. I took my money for my emergency. End of story. Mum's eyes were red and puffy. Sophia, please, can we come in? We've been up all night trying to figure out how to fix this. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside and let them enter. They sat on the small couch while I remained standing by the door. We owe you an apology, Dad began. Do you? Yes, Mum said quickly. We handled this poorly. We should have discussed Carter's situation with you first. Carter's situation? You mean his desire for a new car? It's more than that, Mum insisted. He's been struggling to find work, and we thought having reliable transportation would help. He has a car. It's 5 years old, but it runs fine. It's not about the car specifically, Dad said. It's about giving him the confidence to... Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. You're still doing it. You're still making excuses for him. We're not making excuses, Mum said. We're trying to help our son. What about your daughter? What about helping me? You don't need help the way Carter does, Mum replied. You're successful, independent. I was homeless 3 days ago. You were staying with a friend because you refused to help me. You told me my emergency wasn't real. Dad shifted uncomfortably. We may have been too hasty in that assessment. Too hasty? I stared at him. Dad, I called you crying because my apartment was destroyed and you hung up on me twice. We were overwhelmed, Mum said. We didn't handle it well. You were planning to give $50,000 to Carter for a car while I was sleeping on my friend's couch. How exactly should I have handled that? You should have talked to us, Mum said, her voice getting sharper. Not stolen the money like a common thief. There it is, I said. The real Mom. I was wondering when she'd show up. Sophia, that's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair. Let's talk about fair. I pulled out my phone and showed them Carter's Instagram post. He was already bragging about the car you were going to buy him with my money. Dad's face went pale. We didn't know he posted that. Of course you didn't, because you don't pay attention to anything he does wrong, only what I do wrong. That's not true, Mum protested. Isn't it? When's the last time you criticised Carter for anything? When's the last time you told him to handle his own problems? We're trying to help him become independent. By giving him everything he wants, that's not independence, that's enabling. We've made mistakes with Carter, Dad admitted, but that doesn't justify what you did. What I did was take my own money for my own emergency, the money I earned, saved and deposited for 10 years while Carter contributed nothing. It was family money. No, I shouted, finally losing my composure. It was my money. I worked 60-hour weeks to save that money. I skipped vacations, drove a crappy car, lived in a tiny apartment, all so I could contribute to that fund, and when I finally needed it, you said no. Mum started crying. We never meant for you to feel... Feel what? Worthless? Unimportant? Like my needs don't matter? You matter to us, Dad said quietly. Do I? Because for my entire life, I've watched you give Carter everything while expecting me to earn scraps. He gets praise for getting a C. I get criticised for getting a B+. He gets money for his failed business ideas. I get told to be more responsible. He gets to live in your basement rent-free. I get lectures about independence. We've always been proud of you, Mum said through her tears. Proud of me for what? For being the responsible one, for cleaning up everyone else's messes, for never asking for help. Yes, she whispered. Well, I'm done being responsible for everyone else. I'm done being the family ATM. I'm done pretending that Carter's wants are more important than my needs. Dad cleared his throat. What would it take for you to give the money back? I stared at him. Are you serious right now? We could work out a payment plan. Dad, I'm not giving the money back. It's mine. I earned it, I saved it, and I'm using it for exactly what it was intended for. But Carter is a grown man. If he wants a car, he can get a job and buy one himself. Mum stood up abruptly. Fine, keep the money, but don't expect us to welcome you back into this family with open arms. I don't, I said simply. I don't expect anything from you anymore. They left without another word. An hour later, my phone rang. Desiree. I just got off the phone with your mother, she said. She told me about your conversation. I'm sure she did. Sophia, I need to tell you something. Last month at the wedding, your mother was bragging to me about how they were going to surprise Carter with money for a car. She said it was going to be at least $50,000. She was bragging about it. She said Carter deserved it after everything he'd been through. I asked her where the money was coming from, and she said the family emergency fund. When I asked if you knew, she said it would be a surprise for everyone. I closed my eyes. Thank you for telling me. I'm sorry, honey. What they did wasn't right. After I hung up, I sat on the hotel bed and looked around the small room. It wasn't home, but it was mine. Paid for with my own money, for my own emergency. For the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe. 2 weeks after my parents' visit, I was back in my repaired apartment, arranging furniture that I'd bought with my own money. The floors were better than before, the walls were freshly painted, and everything smelled like new beginnings instead of mould. Blair was helping me hang pictures when my phone rang. Desiree. Sophia, I wanted to check on you. How are you settling back in? Good, really good, actually. The apartment looks better than it did before the flood. I'm glad to hear that. Listen, there's something else I need to tell you. Your mother called me yesterday. I set down the hammer I was holding. What did she want? She wanted me to talk to you about giving the money back. She said the family is falling apart without it. The family is falling apart because they chose Carter over me, not because of the money. That's what I told her. I also told her that what they did was wrong, and that you had every right to take your own money. How did she respond to that? She hung up on me. We haven't spoken since. Blair looked up from the picture she was hanging. Your aunt sounds like the only sane person in your family. She is, I said into the phone. Desiree, thank you for standing up for me. You don't need to thank me for telling the truth, honey. After I hung up, Blair and I finished decorating in comfortable silence. My new couch was bigger than my old one, and I'd bought a dining table that actually seated 4 people instead of 2. For the first time in years, I'd spent money on myself without calculating how it would affect my monthly contribution to the family fund. Around dinner time, there was a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Carter standing in the hallway, looking cleaner and more put together than he had at the hotel. It's Carter, I told Blair. Want me to stay? Yeah, actually, I do. I opened the door but kept the chain lock engaged. What do you want? I want to talk. Can I come in? Depends. Are you going to yell at me and call me names? He looked down at his feet. No, I came to apologize. I studied his face through the crack in the door. He looked tired, maybe even a little humbled. Fine, but Blair stays. I let him in, and he sat awkwardly on the edge of my new couch while Blair and I remained standing. Nice place, he said, looking around. It looks really good. Thanks. Look, Sophia, I've been thinking about everything that happened, and I realize I was out of line. The things I said to you were horrible. They were. I was angry and disappointed, but that's not an excuse. I shouldn't have called you those names or said I hoped you'd die alone. No, you shouldn't have. He fidgeted with his hands. I also want you to know that I got a job, a real job, at a marketing firm downtown. Good for you. I start Monday, and I'm moving out of Mum and Dad's house. I found a studio apartment I can afford. Blair and I exchanged glances. What changed? I asked. Honestly, you taking that money was a wake-up call. I realized I've been coasting my whole life, expecting other people to solve my problems, expecting you to solve my problems. And now I'm going to solve my own problems. I don't need a new car. My old one works fine. I don't need Mum and Dad to support me. I'm 25 years old and it's time I acted like it. I sat down across from him. What about Mum and Dad? How are they handling this? Not well. They keep asking me to talk to you about giving the money back. They think if I apologize, you'll change your mind. And what do you tell them? I tell them it's not my money to ask for. It never was. He looked directly at me. Sophia, I knew that money was mostly yours. I knew you'd been contributing almost everything, and I knew it wasn't fair for me to take it. But I wanted it anyway. At least you're being honest now. I'm trying to be honest about everything, including the fact that Mum and Dad have always treated you differently than me. You were held to a higher standard, expected to be perfect, while I got away with everything. Why didn't you ever say anything before? Because it benefited me. I got the easy path while you got the hard one, and I was selfish enough to let it happen. Blair spoke up for the first time. What are you going to do about your parents? Carter sighed. I don't know. They're still convinced that Sophia is the villain in this story. They think she destroyed the family. I didn't destroy anything, I said. I just stopped letting them destroy me. I know that now, and for what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. We sat in silence for a moment. Carter, I'm not giving the money back. I know, and I'm not asking you to. Good. He stood up to leave, then turned back. Sophia, I'm sorry for all of it, for taking advantage of your generosity, for letting Mum and Dad treat you like that, for being a shitty brother. Thank you for saying that. Do you think maybe someday we could have a real relationship? One where I'm not just taking from you? I looked at this man who was my brother, who was finally taking responsibility for his actions, who was finally growing up. Maybe, I said, but it's going to take time. I understand. After he left, Blair and I ordered pizza and sat on my new couch, eating off my new coffee table. How do you feel? She asked. I looked around my apartment, my space, paid for with my money, furnished with my choices. I thought about the emergency fund, now empty, and how I'd used it for exactly what it was meant for, my emergency. I feel like myself again, I said. For the first time in years, I feel like myself. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I opened it. This is Carter's new number. Thank you for not giving up on me completely. I'm going to prove I can be better. I showed Blair the message. Are you going to respond? I thought about it, then typed back, good luck with the new job. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a start. Outside my window, the sun was setting over the city. Tomorrow I would go to work, come home to my own apartment, and not send a single dollar to anyone else's emergency fund. I had finally learned the difference between being responsible and being taken advantage of, and I was never going back.